What's up everyone, and welcome to a brand new scenario. This time, we have one that you guys actually voted for. You may know my other scenario, What If Gohan and Goten Were Twins, which is honestly one of my favorite ones, and in there, we explore something similar. Somewhat inspired by that, I decided to see if we could apply the same concept to another pair of brothers, a pair which would have had a greater effect on Dragon Ball as a whole. So let's begin. Far away, on planet Vegeta, Lord Frieza has recently taken over the planet and now commands the Saiyans. One low-class warrior, Bardock, is suspicious of Frieza and doesn't trust his intentions at all. He consults his wife, Gine, after hatching a plan. He wants to save his two infant sons, should anything happen to the Saiyans because of Frieza. These two children of his are named Kakarot and Raditz. They're not identical twins though, just fraternal. They're both about ready to come out of their incubation pods, and as soon as that happens, Bardock and Gine prepare to send them off planet. They found a nice planet somewhere far away called Earth, and they should be safe there. After a sad goodbye, one space pod is launched to a planet called Earth, containing the two kids. Sending two separate ones would cause suspicion, otherwise Bardock and Gine would have gone as well. Everything should be okay though. If Frieza does nothing, then great. They can just retrieve the kids and they can come back and live on planet Vegeta with them. And if Frieza does do anything, well, at least they survive. And sadly, the latter is what happens. Frieza destroys planet Vegeta and everyone who is on the planet at the time. Disregarding a few Saiyans that were off planet at the point, every member of the Saiyan race dies. Besides Raditz and Kakarot, there are a few others out there, but they won't be important for a while. Meanwhile, the space pod continues towards its destination, and the twin brothers now land on Earth, somewhere in a forest. An old man stumbles upon the space pod, curious to see what it is, and is surprised to see that there's two baby boys inside. This man, named Gohan, takes these two kids into his home and cares for them, planning on raising them. Gohan takes good care of these two kids, despite their rowdy nature. Fortunately though, this time, he's more careful and attentive to the children, and neither end up getting their head injury. Handling two kids at once, he's got to be a lot more careful. And due to this, the two of them retain their Saiyan nature, and Saiyan names as well, but are raised by Gohan to be better. Originally he was going to give them different names, but they already remembered theirs for some reason, so they're going to stay as Raditz and Kakarot. Given that it's two kids instead of one, he pays closer attention to them later on as well, and after surviving the first Great Ape attack, with Raditz and Kakarot knowing about it, neither of them end up transforming and killing Gohan later on. They end up being raised to be much more disciplined, and are good people despite being Saiyans, but they're not like what Goku was as a kid. The two Saiyan children are very different from Kid Goku in terms of personality, both being Saiyan-like and human-like. While they retain their Saiyan names, they adopt the Sun family name as they are fond of Gohan, and they've been raised well by him. They both kinda see him as a teacher and a parental figure. Gohan did train them after all, and helped them to develop into more disciplined and human-like children, so they don't really refer to him as Grandpa Gohan, more so Master Gohan, or simply just Gohan. And while the bond is a little bit different, they still have a good bond as teacher and students. As for the power pole, Gohan can't decide who to gift it to, but the two of them both use it for training and become experienced with it. They both learn how to use it, but Kakarot decides to be the one who will carry it around, but if ever needed, Raditz also has experience with it and knows how to wield it. Years go by and the two of them are in the forest one day, fishing for some food for themselves and Gohan. The two of them are able to catch a pretty hefty fish, and are proud of themselves for the great catch. They take it back home, but on their way, they encounter someone, or something. Raditz yells at Kakarot to watch out, as Kakarot nearly gets hit by a car that was passing by. But the thing that almost hit Kakarot wasn't a monster, it was just a car, and a young girl steps outside of it and sees two young boys who were provoked and are both in a fighting stance. However, they don't attack the car or the girl. They act hostile towards this girl, but after some conversation, they ease up a little bit. They find out her name is Bulma, and she's looking for something called Dragon Balls, which they don't really know what she's talking about. They're still a little bit suspicious and hostile towards her, but they decide to bring her back to their home for a meal with Master Gohan. Maybe he knows something about what she's searching for. They bring her back to introduce her, and of course, Gohan actually does know about them. A while back, the three of them found one, but Kakarot and Raditz didn't actually know what it was. However, he's not nearly as knowledgeable about it as Bulma is. After learning more about it from what Bulma says, the two boys are interested in the idea of a journey to find these. It could be a fun challenge for them, and it sounds potentially dangerous. They decide to join Bulma in her search, with Gohan approving of it, thinking that some real-world experience could help these boys grow. They haven't really ventured outside of their house much. Bulma allows them to join, and the three of them end up heading off on the journey to find the Dragon Balls. The two of them are a lot more disciplined and sensical, at least compared to how Kid Goku was. Without Kakarot hitting his head, and with Master Gohan being around longer and as a better influence, The two of them are a lot better mannered than Goku was, but still not too well mannered as they still have that Saiyan side to them. They're just smarter, really. But this time, that means Kakarot doesn't end up taking off Bulma's underwear while she sleeps. That would just be weird. Yeah, they actually have some more common sense this time, and no, that's not really the right thing to do. Bulma's actually pretty surprised. These two boys, despite living in the forest, are still somewhat pleasant to be around, despite them being a little bit cold sometimes, but she can tell that they both have good intentions. The real shock to her is finding out about their origin. Bulma asks how they're so powerful and why they both have tails, and they say it's partially due to Grandpa Gohan training them, but also they bring up the fact that they're not human, which explains the tail. Bulma understandably thinks that they're joking at first, until the kids bring up what little they know about their past. They don't know much, because they were only kids when it happened, but they describe that they're from a race of people called Saiyans and they were sent off their planet by their parents, but they don't really recall why. But it seemed like it was for a good reason. Maybe the planet was in danger, but who knows. This partially freaks Bulma out, knowing that they're aliens, but also, it saddens her a bit. They're obviously being serious, and that means they're either abandoned or something terrible happened to their family and their planet. They don't really mind too much though. They've grown accustomed to Earth, and they don't really miss their parents that much. But Bulma still feels a little empathy for them due to them basically losing their original family and race. She's interested though to hear about them being aliens, but since they were kids, they don't remember much about their lives in Vegeta other than their names, and the fact that their parents sent them away, so she can't really learn any info about this faraway planet. It's interesting though to know that there's aliens out there somewhere. Pretty cool. The trio continues on their journey, and they end up encountering a lost turtle. This part goes pretty normally, with the three of them bringing the turtle back to the ocean, who returns with an old man as a reward. The man introduces himself as the Turtle Hermit, Master Roshi, and this jogs the memories of Raditz and Kakarot a bit. They remember Gohan mentioned someone named Roshi before, and they ask Roshi if he knows someone by that name. It's a little shocking to them when they find out that this Roshi guy was actually Gohan's master, and the two kids awkwardly bow and show some respect, since this guy is the master of their master. He's the double master. Roshi's interested to hear that these guys are being trained and raised by Gohan, and after hearing what their objective is, he gives them his necklace with the Dragon Ball in it, without Bulma needing to expose herself. However, they gain access to the Nimbus, but they're not able to ride it. It's a bit of a shame, but it's no surprise that they aren't wholly pure of heart due to them still having some of their Saiyan mindset and not being as pure as Kid Goku was in the original story. This isn't to say that they're bad people, it's just that they're not fully innocent like Goku was. But they got the Dragon Ball at least. Master Roshi didn't get to see a nude girl though, so he kinda missed out in the scenario. But since the boys know Gohan, he decides to help them either way due to that connection, and the fact that he sees some potential in these kids. The search continues, and it leads the trio to a village, where they hear about a monster called Oolong who's been terrorizing the village people, and that they can't get another Dragon Ball without defeating this guy. An actual fight. That sounds like fun for Raditz and Kakarot. The monster sounds strong and could prove to be a formidable foe for them. But they need to put out some bait. Bulma asks if Kakarot and Raditz would dress as a girl, and they sharply say no. Bulma instead acts as the bait for Oolong, who's scared at first when seeing his beastly form, but begins to fall for him when he transforms into that handsome form that he had. While both Oolong and Bulma are distracted, Oolong is startled when the two boys jump out of nowhere and take him down with a single kick, only for him to turn back into a pig not long after. They learn that he's actually kinda weak, and that his true form is this pig form, with the village people all seeing who he really is. After getting the Dragon Ball from the villagers, the trio takes Oolong along with them as basically a prisoner, pretty much like normal. So this whole part of the story doesn't really change much, except the actual encounter with Oolong. While things have been pretty normal so far, things are about to change after the desert part. They're ambushed by a thief named Yamcha and his friend Puar. Kakarot and Raditz work together and are able to fight this guy, and overpower him and actually defeat him. They're surprised at Yamcha's strength, and the fact that he's able to face them 2-on-1. They're about to defeat the bandit, but eventually, he retreats at the sight of Bulma, but also because he's kinda scared about how strong these boys are. Yamcha's not done yet. Later that night, the two boys stay on watch as Bulma and Oolong sleep, and they encounter Yamcha and Puar again, who are now searching for the Dragon Balls after overhearing about them. Raditz and Kakarot fend off the two of them, and threaten Yamcha if he ever tries to come back. They don't want to keep dealing with this guy. But Yamcha doesn't stop there though, and the next day, they encounter him again. Yamcha knows that he can't defeat them, and decides to act a little more cunning. Instead of giving them the car, he asks if he could join them all in their search for the Dragon Balls, sort of extending an olive branch to them and trying to make a truce. He's nervous about it with Bulma being there, and no one trusts him obviously, but since it keeps him in check, Raditz and Kakarot are fine with it, and if Yamcha does try to do anything, well, they could just take him out easy. So now, the group consists of Kakarot, Raditz, Bulma, Oolong, and 2 new members who are working on their own, Yamcha and Puar. Yamcha's plan goes kinda sour, given that he's too busy being infatuated with Bulma and he's not as focused on the Dragon Balls. But this is good, it means Yamcha isn't a threat for now. The group arrives at Fire Mountain and they don't know how to get to the top. Raditz suggests trying to use the Nimbus, thinking it might be able to work this time somehow, but they can't get it to work. Suddenly, they're attacked by a large man, Ox King. Out of nowhere though, Ox King seizes his hostility when he sees Raditz next to a Nimbus and Kakarot having the power pole on his back. It gets him to realize that these guys have some sort of relation to Roshi and Gohan, both of whom he's very fond of. They get along pretty well and introduce themselves, with Yamcha, Bulma, Oolong, and Puar being terrified. Yet Kakarot and Raditz actually begin talking to Ox King about who they are. He sends them on a quest to Master Roshi, and also to find his daughter, so the group splits up here. Since Yamcha didn't encounter Chichi before by being on his own, this is their first time hearing about her. Raditz, Bulma, and Oolong decide to go see Master Roshi, while Kakarot, Yamcha, and Puar go to find Chichi. Without use of the Nimbus, it makes it all a lot harder since they don't have the ease of transport, and this is why they need to split up and divide the workload. Yamcha is still not really too trustworthy, but Kakarot is able to keep him in check kinda. Besides, if Yamcha does anything stupid, that ruins his plans of getting the Dragon Balls for himself. With Raditz's group going to find Roshi, and Kakarot's group going to find Chichi, they're off on their own and this is where we're going to leave off for now. Kakarot's group of him, Yamcha, and Puar head off on their search for Chichi. They venture out a little far from the mountain, and eventually, Kakarot ends up running into some small girl, which is obviously Chichi. That wasn't really hard at all. They head back to Ox King with her, and now they just have to wait for the other group to come back with the fan. Without the Nimbus, this journey is going to take a little longer for both groups, especially for Raditz's group as they actually have to cross the ocean and find Roshi again. Nothing too different happens here though. Roshi doesn't end up having the fan because he threw it out on accident, so he comes along with the group back to the mountain and is going to put out the fire on his own. The 2 groups arrive back, and everything is in place. Roshi puts out the fire, and nothing too big changes overall. Pretty standard. As for the Kamehameha, Kakarot actually tries to attempt it himself, and he ends up being able to do it somehow, although it's a really weak version of it. Raditz does the same, and it has a similar effect. Pretty interesting to see that these 2 kids were able to pull it off, given how long it took Roshi to learn it. But considering their martial arts experience and their naturally stronger Saiyan physiology, it kinda makes sense. However, one thing did change that will affect the future. During the time everyone was waiting for Raditz's group to return, and on their journey back, Yamcha and Puar were kinda just there, while Kakarot and Chichi actually begun bonding a bit. And being how she is, or was at this point, Chichi takes an interest in Kakarot, and ends up asking him like usual if he'll marry her in the future. And Kakarot, he seems pretty indifferent to this, and he agrees. This time, he actually knows what marriage is and isn't just agreeing because he thinks it's food. But if this means he'll have a wife, then yeah, whatever. Being sane and all, it's not that unusual for him to be so nonchalant about this, given the way that their family lives work, but it doesn't really matter either way. Chichi is happy, and Kakarot will actually remember this. Pretty cool. A few days ago, he was just living his life out in the woods with Gohan and Raditz, and all of a sudden, he has a wife, which apparently is a big deal on Earth. He's getting used to this human stuff pretty quickly. Since Gohan's been around longer this time, he knows a little about how Earth has marriage and stuff and how it works, and he guesses this is just how it happens, but it's really whatever for him. So with that out of the way, let's get back to the other parts of the story. For the next part, I don't really need to cover the rabbit mob too much. Nothing substantial happens that will affect the story, and I mean it wasn't really that crucial overall. So to save time, we're just going to skip over that and say it goes pretty much similar to how it did before, and we're going to move on to the introduction of the Pilaf gang. Continuing their journey, Shu ambushes the group and tries to steal the Dragon Balls, but it doesn't go well at all. Yamcha and Puar are with the group this time, and they definitely aren't going to let the Dragon Balls get stolen, so they help defend against him. On top of that, there's also Raditz there, and Kakarot isn't as passive as Goku would be in this situation, and obviously it's pretty much the same for Raditz. So they have 3 strong people actually actively fighting back, and it doesn't really go well. Together, the twins along with Yamcha are able to actually defeat Shu and protect the Dragon Balls. After he's defeated, Mai also jumps out and tries to attack, but it goes pretty much the same for her. That gets the group to realize that whoever this guy is might have the remaining Dragon Ball, and they see it on the radar. They interrogate the 2 members of the Pilaf gang, and they pretty easily give up the info. Okay, so they know that this Pilaf guy has the last one, and it shouldn't be too hard to retrieve it, especially since they have Puar and Oolong. They leave Mai and Shu out there, and they'll probably just deal with them later. So what do I mean by that by saying Puar and Oolong are there and going to be helpful? Well, they have a plan. They arrive at Pilaf's palace, and they have 2 options. Option A, have Puar and Oolong sneak in as Shu and Mai and try and steal the Dragon Ball covertly. Or, option B, good old-fashioned brute force. I mean, hey, if they need to, they can easily go to option B and that'll probably work. But they want to attempt option A first, and they have Oolong turn into Shu, with Puar turning into Mai. Now with their disguises, they begin trying to sneak in, and they're actually successful. They first encounter Pilaf, and they end up coming up with some story telling Pilaf that the group was too strong and they couldn't get the Dragon Balls, and now they're back here to resupply. And Pilaf actually ends up buying it. They're able to steal the last ball, and then they run out, with Pilaf not even realizing what just happened. The plan worked, and there's basically none of the business with the Pilaf gang trapping everyone and trying to steal the wish. I mean, really, as of now, Pilaf doesn't even realize what just happened, and he probably won't for a while. As for the Dragon team, they now all have the Dragon Balls, and they're about to use them, until Yamcha and Puar steal them and run off with them. They were so close, but yeah, not gonna work out. As for Yamcha and Puar though, they're elated, their plan worked. Now, they finally got the Dragon Balls and they're able to escape. The Desert Bandit and his friend now have the Dragon Balls to themselves, and they're about to make the wish. But how are they actually supposed to summon Shenron? Well, Puar actually thought ahead. While he was disguised as Mai, he actually ended up asking Pilaf about it, wondering how the Dragon Balls actually work. This was a really smart move on his part, because now they know how to actually summon the dragon. Pilaf did think it was kind of strange, but he didn't really think anything of it. Maybe Mai was just curious. Well, now it's time to see if they actually work, and if Pilaf's instructions were right. They end up calling Shenron forth, and they make a wish for Yamcha to overcome his fear of girls, the one that he originally wanted. The rest of the dragon team is able to catch up with them after seeing Shenron appear, but they arrive when it's a little too late. Yamcha smugly turns around, already having made his wish, and the Dragon Balls are no longer active as they spread across the earth again. Yamcha slyly tries to apologize, making himself look to be the victim, and he makes sure not to say what he wished for because that would be kind of embarrassing, and he's not looking for a fight right now. His wish wasn't anything bad that'll harm them in any way, and he lets them know this. And now, Yamcha has overcome his fear of women. He's not nervous around Bulma, and is able to slyly talk to her, and also tries to make a move on her. And it actually kind of works. Kakarot and Raditz are hostile, but they back down because they don't really care about making a wish for themselves. Only Bulma really wanted to make one. And Yamcha is able to actually calm Bulma down so she's not mad at him for it. Well, at least not as mad as she should be. And he starts smooth talking her. While they've been with the group for a longer time, Bulma has actually started taking a liking to Yamcha. And while she's pretty pissed that Yamcha stole the wish, well, now Yamcha's kind of reciprocating the interest. And it's a huge development since now that Yamcha doesn't fear talking to her anymore, they openly show that they're attracted to each other. And due to this, Bulma eventually stops being mad and realizes maybe she didn't need to wish for a boyfriend, because now Yamcha's fearless when talking to her, and he's right here and he's showing interest, openly flirting with her even. She was only going to wish to get a boyfriend anyways, and now Yamcha's here, so it's kind of pointless going for the wish now. She doesn't forgive him easily, but Yamcha's actually able to work around it pretty impressively, and Bulma's also partially blinded by her attraction to him, so yeah. But it works out. Well, that's pretty much end to the whole childhood arc of Dragon Ball. A few changes happen here that are going to affect the future. One, Yamcha and Bulma are together like normal, but under different circumstances because Yamcha got the wish. Bulma doesn't care about the Dragon Balls now because she has a boyfriend, and now Yamcha's not going to be insanely weird around her. This might be more long-lasting than it was in the original story, but who knows for sure. We'll see as this story goes on. 2. Kakarot and Raditz keep their tails. They never turn into great apes, and they never have a Yamcha and Puar slice it off, so they get to keep it this time around. Without being trapped by Pilaf, they had no need to actually turn into great apes to escape. 3. Kakarot and Raditz both know the Kamehameha, pretty much like normal for Goku, but now Raditz has it too, so they're both learning at a similar pace. 4. Kakarot is pretty much engaged with Chichi, I guess, and he actually knows it this time. Well, much later on, but he remembers it this time and actually knows what he got into. So he kinda has a fiancé already. A little weird at his age, but whatever. And of course, number 5, Grandpa Gohan is alive. He didn't die in this scenario, so he's still sticking around and raising Kakarot and Raditz, and that's gonna affect their futures too. So overall, the way this saga was structured here only causes a few changes in this saga, but they're all gonna have big implications and effects later on in the story, even if they were small in this part. For now, Raditz and Kakarot are able to return home, and they tell Gohan about what happened. Gohan is pretty interested to hear this all. They met some new people, learned some new things, and to top it all off, they met Gohan's former master. That gets Gohan thinking, why not send the boys off to train with Roshi? They already know him, and Roshi knows that Gohan has trained them. and with his recommendation, Roshi is sure to take them as students. He suggested to the two boys, and they're obviously up for it. They agree, and now they can head off and find Roshi and train with him. The two arrive at Kame House, and they greet Master Roshi. They tell him Gohan sent them there, and that they want to train here now and get stronger. Roshi this time is a lot more willing to help out, especially with the recommendation from Gohan, and that's partially the reason why he doesn't require them to go find some girl for him. But also, there's another reason that he didn't ask them to find a girl for him to actually become students. Why is that? Well, without the Nimbus, it took some extra time for Kakarot and Raddus to actually head back to Kame House, so someone got there before them, and they gave Roshi a gift of dirty magazines. So Roshi's horniness is already dealt with. That is something I never thought I'd say out loud. Anyways, that's already dealt with. But why is it dealt with, and who got here before them? Well, it's a young monk child named Krillin. Given the two of them are a lot more disciplined, Krillin is still a little wary of them, but they don't really get off on the wrong foot by making fun of him like Goku kinda did. But then Roshi starts to think, well, maybe Krillin fulfilled his requirements, but Kakarot and Raditz kinda didn't, and now he's gonna be training 3 people, so he begins to reconsider, and then he ends up telling the 3 of them to bring back a pretty girl to him, so they can actually fulfill his requirements and begin the training. Again, this is gonna take kinda long since they don't have the Nimbus, but they're gonna go off and do it anyways. Kakarot and Raddus think it's kinda weird, but Krillin's pretty indifferent to this requirement, and the 3 of them head off. On their journey, they end up hearing some girl cry out for help, and they end up finding some blue-haired girl sitting there while the police are in a standoff with her, while she's yelling for help. They help the girl out, and they find out her name is Launch, and they bring her back to Master Roshi. We'll end off this part here. For training, there's nothing really to cover here. Even with Raditz being there, and Kakarot being different than Goku, they still get the same training along with Krillin, and nothing here is really worth noting in terms of change. The only major thing here is that they're actually able to explain to Krillin and Roshi about their origins, being Saiyans and all. They attribute that as the reason for them being so strong and such quick learners, although they don't really know why that is. This is a good motivator for Krillin though, as he wants to surpass them despite him not having the same latent ability. Can a human surpass an alien like this? That'll be pretty cool for him to find out. Overall, the training itself goes pretty much the same in terms of routine, but Krillin ends up a little stronger due to his motivation, as do Kakarot and Raditz since there's 3 students instead of 2, plus everyone here is motivated to surpass one another. It is very competitive, but still very friendly. Krillin becomes great friends with the both of them. With that now, we could jump into the 21st World Tournament. The preliminaries are pretty much a breeze for the group. Of course, Kakarot, Krillin, Yamcha, and Raditz all get in, as well as Roshi disguised as Jackie Chun. Also, the Saiyan twins and Krillin both received their RNGs from Roshi, so they get a new outfit as well. Ronfon's not really that big of a deal, so Raditz replaces her, and Namu still gets in. During her fight with Namu, it's apparent that Namu is much more skilled than her, so it wouldn't be unreasonable to assume that Namu would make it in over her in terms of skill. With our 8 contestants set, we can now discuss the fights. Krillin wins against Bacterian. Again, nothing really changes here, and that's pretty much normal. Yamcha's fight with Jackie Chun goes the same as well. Our first real change is when we get to Namu versus Raditz. Namu is clearly a strong guy, as is Raditz, and from the main story, Namu's fight with Goku showed that he was very impressive in terms of power and skill, so he's definitely a formidable foe. Raditz is also very strong and skilled, so this clearly would make for an interesting match. Namu does put up a very good fight, but in terms of power and skill, he's not fully able to surpass Raditz. So sadly, he loses this one, but he's a good sport about it. Don't worry though, Roshi still helps Namu out and gives him the Hoi Poi capsule so he can get some water for his village. And as a favor in return, Namu dresses up as Roshi like normal to stop Yamcha from assuming that Jackie Chun is actually Roshi in disguise. Raditz takes the win here, although it's a very close one. Giran is up next against Kakarot. No, not Jiren, Giran, this guy. And while Giran's gum ability might cause some trouble for Kakarot, Kakarot is still able to escape it and work around it due to having his tail. Neither he nor Raditz lost their tails, so it's not some big shock that he still has it here, and he's able to use it in order to escape the gum. Kakarot takes the win, and now we move to the semifinals. Krillin's fight with Jackie Chun goes pretty normally. The interesting matchup in the semifinals is the one that follows. Oh yeah, it's Kakarot versus Raditz. The 2 of them won in the quarterfinals, so now this means the 2 of them are up against each other in a battle of brothers. The winner here is very much a toss-up. You have to remember, this isn't Goku versus Raditz from the main series. These 2 characters are Kakarot and Raditz, who are very different from their canon counterparts, at least at this point in time. Power-wise, they're a bit above Kid Goku, with the 2 of them being pretty even to each other. They're both equally strategic and smart, have had the same training, and are both the same age, everything. So all the technical stuff like skill and power, that's pretty much even. The only real difference here besides physical appearance is personality, otherwise, they're one and the same. I mean, they are twins after all, and they've been through pretty much everything together. And as for personality, they're also different from their canon counterparts in some ways, but also similar in some others. Kakarot is a much more optimistic fighter, and is very strategic and quick to think during fights. Although not as naive as Kid Goku was, and is a lot more intelligent. Raditz is more cunning than his brother, much like normal, and he's also a little more strategy focused than his brother is. Although it is a heavily competitive match, and a very close one, it's friendly, and it's an all-out battle between the two brothers. The fight is exciting to watch, and even briefly goes mid-air, but eventually, a winner is revealed. Through his strategic prowess and his cunning personality, Raditz is able to defeat Kakarot in this fight, although with a ring out and not a knockout. The two of them would love to have an all-out battle, but they've decided way before that this tournament isn't the place to do so. There's too many rules, and the ring outs kinda ruin the whole aspect of the fight. The two of them decided beforehand if they end up facing each other, they're both accepting if they were to end in a ring out. Raditz is the victor here, and he now progresses to the final round against Jackie Chun. While Roshi was originally kinda irritated when fighting Goku, it's also a lot different here too. Raditz is a lot more disciplined and stoic than someone like Goku. Even Kakarot is different from Kid Goku as well. Raditz here is a lot more respectful, and Roshi is the same in response. He's proud to not only see the strength of Raditz develop, but his character as well. Raditz is able to put up a good fight against his master, and both he and Roshi enjoy the fight. Through the use of his extensive abilities, Roshi is still able to overpower Raditz. He does want to win against his student and show him the lesson that there is someone stronger than his students always. You know, just so they don't get too cocky in their training. And since Raditz isn't as rowdy as Kid Goku during the fight, he's not able to trip up Roshi like Goku did. Sure, he's a lot more cunning, but he doesn't pretend to be a rabid monkey or dog like Goku did. And Roshi is also very smart, and his cunningness won't really get through Roshi. That means that Jackie Chun is able to win before the full moon even comes out for Raditz to see. The match ends peacefully and respectfully, with Raditz never transforming. Kakarot doesn't either. However, it is a lot closer this time. The only reason Raditz loses here is because Roshi is able to outsmart him a bit, despite Raditz actually having more power, and Roshi has more techniques that are able to stop Raditz in his tracks. In the crowd though, one of the people watching this fight was of course Grandpa Gohan. Raditz bows to Roshi and Roshi does the same in response. And then Raditz looks in the crowd and notices Grandpa Gohan there. Gohan would have joined the tournament himself, but he didn't want to make it unfair because he's still pretty strong in his own right. After seeing Kakarot and Raditz again and congratulating them, he goes up to Jackie Chun. He does keep it a secret, but he briefly talks to this contestant, knowing that it is Roshi after all. He's curious as to why Roshi disguised himself though, but he understands once it's explained to him. Either way, Gohan is proud of Kakarot and Raditz. They made a lot of progress, and he raised them well, and they're quite strong now, and sending them to train with Roshi was a great idea. Following the tournament, we see another major change. Without being able to use the Nimbus, and since Gohan is alive, Kakarot and Raditz don't go off to look for the Dragon Balls again. Even as a memoir, they don't need the 4-star ball, since Gohan is still there with them, and he's with the group anyways. It's not like they have any wishes to make either. So while Krillin goes off with Roshi still, the two kids return home with Gohan, and this means that the Red Ribbon Army arc doesn't begin here. Actually, while I have the Nimbus on my mind, I forgot to mention in the last part, someone else gets the Cloud and gets a good use out of it, and that person is actually Chichi. Yeah, she has access to the Cloud now, which is pretty cool since she's really the only one in the main cast in this scenario that can ride it, since Kakarot can't do it. Having the Nimbus means she actually is present during these parts of the story now, as she has transportation and frequently visits Kakarot, and even trains with them from time to time since that's really all that Gohan, Kakarot, and Raditz do. So while she was completely out of Goku's life in the original story, now she's actually involved in Kakarot's life a bit. I mean, they are kinda like engaged after all. It's weird, but Gohan and Kakarot accept it. I mean, that's just how Chichi is. As for now, they continue life normally, with no Red Ribbon arc happening right now. Eventually, they do continue training with Roshi as well, and Chichi ends up joining and she gets stronger on her own right, although she's way behind the rest. She's still strong though, and is mainly there because Kakarot is, and knowing that her dad trained with Roshi. However, Roshi has noticed that the 4 students of his are reaching a plateau by training with him. Maybe if they're this strong, he wonders, how could he help them progress further? He thinks back to his own training and remembers, what if he sent them off to train with Korin? It is the best thing for them to do next. He did it centuries ago on his own, but they may be able to do it themselves. He tells his students, and the 4 kids end up traveling to Korin's tower, and they meet Upa and Bor at the bottom. Luckily, both are okay. There's no Red Ribbon Army yet, and there's no Tao Pai Pai, so they're fine. the 4 kids begin their climb. And after about a day of climbing, they're all able to make it up to the top. They don't know exactly what they're looking for until they see some cat man standing there. They introduce themselves and find out that this guy is actually Korin, the guy that they came to look for. They are about to explain why they're here, but they don't even need to. Korin can sense their intentions and why they were sent here. He could read their hearts after all. After giving each of them a senzu bean and having them healed, now they all begin to fight Korin and try to take the pot of water from him. They each start by fighting him one-on-one, and that does nothing. And then they all go at him at once, all 4 of them. He's still able to actually hold them off, and he's interested to see their abilities. But I mean, it is a 4v1 after all. Since it's all 4 of them going at once, it takes just over a day instead of 3 to get the pot of water, and he's impressed with their abilities. They drink the water and don't really feel anything different. They don't know that the water is basically a red herring, and the real training came from climbing the tower and fighting Korin. Just to see their abilities, he has them climb the tower again just to show them how much they've improved, and this gets them to believe that the water is the real deal. They're pleased with their training, and want to train with Korin some more, which he ends up accepting. He can sense the huge potential in these 4 kids, and he's interested to see in what kind of things they'll be able to do in the future. So they begin their training, and all seems to be going well, but since the Red Ribbon Army arc didn't start like normal, the Red Ribbon Army's still out there going for the Dragon Balls, and with no one interfering, they're able to actually collect a few of the Dragon Balls. And now, that leads a few of the soldiers to Korin's tower, where Upa and Bora have another ball. They're able to defend against the soldiers, and then eventually, Kakarot, Raditz, Krillin, and Chichi all descend from the tower, and see what's going on. Instead of it starting like normal, this is when they're going to find out about the Red Ribbon Army, and this is how that arc is going to start. The Red Ribbon Army's already made progress in getting the Dragon Balls, and now, they're on track to get some more. With the 4 kids introducing themselves to Upa and Bora, they find out about what's happening, and now, they actually decide that they want to help. After their training with Korin, they should be more than enough to help defeat the army. Finding out the intentions of the Red Ribbon Army and how they're after the Dragon Balls, they realize that they're up to no good, and they must be stopped. The 4 of them now begin the journey towards the Red Ribbon Army's HQ, prepared to use this training for good and actually help stop this threat. At the Red Ribbon Army HQ, they have surveillance, and they're able to see that there's some group of kids heading towards them, or at least it looks like they're heading in that direction. These must be some stupid lost kids. They obviously don't know what they're getting into, so maybe they just gotta try and deter them somehow. In order to stop them from coming to the base, they send out a few soldiers just to warn the kids not to head any further. These soldiers threaten the kids, but they don't even really care. Eventually, the soldiers get hostile and start attacking, but they obviously can't do anything against the kids, and they take down the soldiers pretty easily. The Red Ribbon Army realizes that these kids are a threat, and now they send out more forces to attack them. But these forces don't do anything either. They even send out General Blue, who's able to briefly do something with his ability to stun people, but having 4 of the kids there, he's not even a match either. Every minute, the kids are getting closer and closer to the HQ, and they need to stop these kids somehow. Maybe it's time to call on Mercenary Tao Pai Pai. Tao has a bit of a high fee for this. The higher-ups of the army don't really care too much. They really just want these kids dealt with. They could tell they're going to be a big issue if they come any closer. With the Red Ribbon Army having now found out about the kids, and knowing that they're a threat, they send out Mercenary Tao to go deal with them. Tao heads out, and after not much time traveling, he's over to where the kids are. He greets them and introduces himself, telling them that this is where their journey and their life ends. So as you could probably tell, this fight's pretty much stacked in one direction. The group of kids not only have strength in numbers, but they're able to actually overpower Tao. Tao fights and he's very skilled and he's able to hold his own for a bit, but eventually he begins getting desperate. He even decides to break out a sword, but it doesn't really do anything against the kids. It's a pretty short battle, and then eventually he breaks out a grenade, trying to blow the kids up if he can't kill them himself. Too bad for him though, the kids are fast enough to react and kick the grenade up towards him, and it explodes in his face. Well, that wasn't really that hard. With Tao out of the way, the kids can now progress further into the base. Eventually, they meet up with Officer Black, who's already killed Red. Not too much changes here either. Officer Black brings out his robot, but it's not any match for the kids. Krillin acts as bait for it by getting in close, serving as a distraction for Kakarot and Raddus to attack the robot. He begins getting sloppy after all the attacks, but then eventually, Chichi's able to charge up a massive laser with her helmet, which tears right through the robot. Together, the 4 of them all launch a massive assault on the robot, and they defeat him with basically no difficulty. You know, considering they just wiped out an entire army, that wasn't too bad. They did it with relative ease, and the army threw everything they got at them, but it didn't really work in the end. Interestingly enough, it seems the Red Ribbon Army already has some Dragon Balls. And since the army's basically gone, they decide why not take the Dragon Balls back to Korin's tower. They don't necessarily have any wishes right now, but they're gonna bring them back just in case. It's better to have them safe. They're still missing one anyway, so they can't even make a wish if they wanted. They arrive back, and Upa and Bora thank everyone for their help. The Red Ribbon Army has finally been stopped, which not only saves Upa and Bora, but it will help the Earth as a whole. The Red Ribbon Army is completely gone now, and everyone could rest easily knowing that they won't have to deal with it any longer. And as a plus, the kids got some extra fighting experience. They did get their training with Korin, but this also helps out a bit. Upa and Bora take the Dragon Balls and thank everyone. They offer to protect them, and if they end up finding the last ball somehow, they'll be more than happy to give the Dragon Balls back to the kids so they can make whatever wish they want. Everyone's about to depart, but then they notice something strange coming towards the tower. No way. It's the Pilaf gang. They're back in action and coming back for the Dragon Balls. They come right towards the Korin Tower, and that's a pretty big mistake for them because all the kids are there right now. They notice the kids and immediately turn back, knowing that they won't stand any chance against them. But Kakarot and Raditz are able to jump in front of their car and stop them. Out of fear for their life, they decide to just give them the Dragon Ball and get the hell out of there. Huh, well, I guess they have all the Dragon Balls now. If anything, their encounter with the Pilaf gang shows that by harboring the Dragon Balls, they'll just become a massive target. And now that they realize that, it doesn't really make sense to leave the Dragon Balls with Upa and Bora because then they'll just get in trouble because of it. Upa and Bora don't have any wishes, nor do Kakarot, Raditz, or Krillin. Not wanting to waste the Dragon Balls, Chichi just decides that she'll make a wish, and she'll wish to restore her father's belongings that were destroyed before, since they can't really think of anything else to wish for. That's good news because now her home and Ox King's wealth are fully restored, and hopefully they won't have to deal with that fire any longer. Well, I guess now everything's solved and they could finally depart. Everyone splits up. Kakarot and Raditz go back with Grandpa Gohan, Krillin goes back with Roshi, and of course Chi-Chi's back with Ox King. There's now a little bit of time in between until the next World Tournament, and sometime in between this, Yamcha becomes a student of Master Roshi. There's no Fortune Teller Baba arc, and Yamcha hasn't been around, but I still feel like he'd pursue this. Knowing how strong Kakarot, Raditz, and Krillin are, he might as well try training with Roshi as well. Time passes and then we eventually arrive to the 22nd World Tournament. This time around, Raditz and Chichi are in it. Raditz is obviously going to be there, and Chi-Chi's a lot closer with everyone, especially since her boyfriend slash fiance is there this time. You know, if you remember from a few parts ago when she proposed to Kakarot and he basically accepted it, and since she's been around them this whole time, of course she's going to be there. She does train and fight with the group a lot after all, so why not? In order to make some space for them, I'll say that Manwolf and Pamput are replaced by Raditz and Chichi. And now we arrive to the start of the tournament. First off, we have Yamcha versus Ten Shinhan. And that doesn't really change at all, it goes relatively normal. The first really big change we see is when Raditz is versus Jackie Chun. Instead of him facing Manwolf, he's against one of his students. On par with Kakarot, Raditz is one of Roshi's strongest students, if not the strongest. While he had a hard time fighting his students in the last tournament, this time I think it's safe to say that Raditz has surpassed him. It's a hard fought battle, but Raditz is able to come out victorious. Roshi's not too concerned though because of Ten Shinhan. He feels that even if he doesn't make it to the finals, Ten Shinhan might be able to defeat them. However, something doesn't really sit right with him. Ten Shinhan using his powers for evil and going with Master Shen. In between the matches, he decides to have a talk with Ten Shinhan. Next up is Chaozu versus Krillin, and that goes pretty much the same as normal. And then after that, we have Chi-Chi versus Kakarot. Chi-Chi's been with the group this entire time and she's been doing a lot of training here, so she does put up a really good fight. But ultimately, it's safe to say that Kakarot's going to be ahead of her here. Once he kicks it into high gear, he's able to take her out and defeat her. Now we move on to the semifinals. Raditz versus Ten Shinhan is the next match, and this is where things start to get really interesting. Ten Shinhan gets to see how strong these kids really are, and is beginning to enjoy the fight now that he has someone on par with him to fight with. He didn't really get to see Kakarot go all out, but Raditz kinda did against Jackie Chun, and Ten Shinhan was looking forward to fighting one of them. They're definitely going to be a worthy opponent. Like I mentioned earlier, Roshi didn't get to fight Ten Shinhan, but he did get to talk to him in between the matches. And during this fight, the effects of that start to show. He was rejecting it at first, especially because he didn't actually get the experience of fighting Roshi, but the talk that they had still did sit with him a bit. He's very conflicted just like usual. As a martial artist, is this really the right thing to do? He doesn't take Roshi as seriously though because he doesn't know it's actually Roshi, he only knows it's Jackie Chun. Since they didn't get to fight, Ten Shinhan probably wouldn't even listen to Roshi if he revealed his true identity, and he does hear Jackie Chun's words but he doesn't really care as much. The fight is really close, both of them start ramping up. Eventually, Shen tells him to kill Raditz, and even has Chaozu help by stunning the kid. Ten Shinhan's confused but then he realizes what's going on, and he tells him to stop it. He wants the fight to be fair so he could feel like he truly won, otherwise he has no pride at all. Even though his talk with Roshi before wasn't as impactful, he's still impressed by Raditz and that makes him fight fairly for the sake of his pride. If he just kills Raditz now, he won't feel like that he truly won. So he could start going all out and actually start fighting seriously. This is actually the turning point for him. The match is actually really long. Both Ten and Raditz break out all of their abilities. In terms of ability, I say Ten Shinhan is better, but in terms of strength, Raditz is better, although the gap between both those skills isn't really too big. That's what makes it so close and why the fight is dragged out so long. Eventually, Raditz surprisingly is able to take the win. Both he and Ten are exhausted, but Ten's actually very glad about this outcome. It really gives him a new perspective, and he thanks Raditz for showing him a great fight. Although he did have to betray his master, he does realize that this is the proper way for him to walk in life. This is the beginning of his change as a person. Next up, we have Kakarot vs Krillin, and there is an obvious outcome here. Kakarot takes the win pretty much like normal, and once again, that leads to a match between the two brothers, Kakarot and Raditz. However, this time, it takes place in the finals instead of the semifinals. Roshi's a little bit concerned, because that means one of his students is going to win the tournament, and they might not learn the same lesson, but overall, he's seen how much they've matured, so he's not too sure if he even needs to worry about that. It still does sit with him though. Just like Raditz vs Ten Shinhan, this matchup is exhilarating. The same brotherly matchup that we saw before is back again, but at a whole new level. Kakarot assures Raditz that he won't lose this time, while Raditz promises to prevail over his brother once again. As brothers, they don't hold back. They go at each other right away, and begin ramping up quickly. Everyone watching in the crowd is amazed. Roshi, Yamcha, Krillin, Ten Shinhan, Chaozu, everyone. This is truly a spectacle to be watching. The fight is also relatively long, and it's very evenly matched. However, there is one thing that I'm going to say is going to be a deciding factor. Well, with Raditz's match against Ten Shinhan, if he was able to heal up somehow after that, that could mean that Raditz got somewhat of a Zenkai after the battle, and he could be ahead of Kakarot right now in terms of strength. In terms of ability, they're evenly matched, but if Raditz gets ahead in strength, that means he might actually be able to win here. However, I don't really know if he'd get the chance to heal, or at least heal fully. Sure, he'd have some time to rest up in between the matches and get some food, but I don't think he's going to fully heal and get the effects of the Zenkai just yet. The match would be really close and it could honestly go either way, but because of the fact that Raditz was just in a major fight and potentially hasn't fully healed yet, I'm going to say that Kakarot is able to win, but only barely. Kakarot's amazed that he was able to win, and he thanks his brother for the great fight. Everyone meets up after the tournament and decides to go off on their own again to train. However, Kakarot and Raditz forgot their power pole back at the tournament, so they decide that they want to go get it, but Krillin decides that he's going to instead because they seem a little bit tired, and he wants to help them out. And he comes back alive! He's not dead this time from Tambourine because they don't have any Dragon Balls with them. Everyone splits up once again and goes back to living their normal lives. Not long after though, Roshi sees something on TV that terrifies him. Murders have been taking place across the world, and there's only been one thing left behind, the symbol of King Piccolo, which Roshi immediately recognizes. And some of the people that were murdered actually were from the World Tournament. It could be a coincidence, but this obviously doesn't sit well with Roshi. He immediately pieces together that King Piccolo's back, and he's going around targeting World Tournament contestants. Thankfully for him, they don't know his true identity, but that means his students are in danger, including two of his newest students, Ten Shinhan and Chaozu, who just recently joined him. Due to him being defeated this time around, and also given the fact that they're not immediately thrown into battle against King Piccolo, Ten and Chaozu decide to join Master Roshi to see how Kakarot and Raditz got so strong. Maybe they could learn a thing or two, and one day Ten could fight Raditz again and beat him. So of course they're on the island right now once Roshi hears the news about King Piccolo. He's not sure what to do, but all he knows is that he does have to stop King Piccolo. On his island, he gathers his students, and eventually he contacts Gohan, who then brings Kakarot and Raditz over to the scene. Luckily, Bulma's there too, and then she points something out. She just so happened to have a dragon radar with her, as she never let go of it because Kakarot didn't take it. And she points out that on the radar, a bunch of Dragon Balls are together, almost all 7 of them. This can't be any coincidence. It seems like King Piccolo's probably trying to gather the Dragon Balls for himself. It's worse than Roshi expected. He doesn't want his students going towards Piccolo immediately. He has to come up with some game plan. In order to prepare, Kakarot, Raditz, and Krillin suggest the idea of getting some Senzu beans, in case they face a harsh battle and need to be healed. On top of that, they could seek out one of the Dragon Balls for themselves, and keep it away from King Piccolo. First, they decide to stop by Korin's tower, where he's nervous about them trying to go and fight King Piccolo. He knows how strong they are in comparison and doesn't think they're ready for it yet. They know all too well from Master Roshi about how powerful King Piccolo is, but they're still gonna fight anyways because otherwise, Earth is doomed. Korin then has a suggestion, the Ultra Divine Water. Maybe if one of them tries to drink it, they might be strong enough to actually fight King Piccolo. I left it up for you guys to decide who gets to drink it, and many of the comments said that they should just split it, which it is definitely possible, and I'm sure half the water probably has the same effects as drinking it whole. I mean, poison is poison. If you're drinking half that bottle, it's probably going to have the same effects as the whole bottle. Maybe not as intense, but who knows. The two of them split it and drink it, and it has the effects that you'd expect. They just start convulsing on the floor. But they'll be fine, I guess, maybe, hopefully. Well, while that's going on, Roshi decides he's gonna leave with Tien, Yamcha, and Chaozu, as Bulma, Krillin, and Chichi will stay back with Kakarot and Raditz. Bulma gives Roshi an extra car that she had in the capsule, and she'll fly the rest of them out of here once Kakarot and Raditz heal. Each group also gets some senzus from Korin, so while Raditz and Kakarot recover, Roshi and his group head out. On their way to Korin's tower, they actually stop to pick up something. They made sure to get a Dragon Ball. It'll act as perfect bait for King Piccolo, so they'll keep it on them, and they can use it to lure the Demon King towards them. Unfortunately, this isn't going to go so well for them. They do end up tempting King Piccolo to come towards them, and that leads Roshi to enacting his plan. He didn't want Tien, Yamcha, and Chaozu coming with him, but he didn't want them suspicious either of why he was going alone. His plan was to use the Mafuba, killing himself in the process to seal King Piccolo. Much like he does with Tien, he has to paralyze Yamcha so he doesn't intervene, and overall the events here go pretty normally. Chaozu ends up getting killed by trying to interrupt the wish, and Roshi dies using the Mafuba, which ends up failing. King Piccolo also gets his last Dragon Ball, and now he's regained his youth. That was their last shot at stopping him, and now he's truly unstoppable, or so it seems. Piccolo continues his rampage as Tien and Yamcha eventually recollect themselves. Thankfully they have senzus from Korin. If only they weren't paralyzed, they might have been able to save Roshi, but it would be too risky since King Piccolo was right there. At least they're uninjured, but they can't say the same for Chaozu and Roshi. Tien immediately wants to head towards King Piccolo and defeat him, and Yamcha tells him this is a terrible idea. He understands why Tien wants to go after him so badly, but King Piccolo's too strong now. Tien tells Yamcha his plan. He plans to use the Mafuba much like Roshi did, which understandably concerns Yamcha, considering what just happened with Roshi when he tried to use it. Tien doesn't care. He wants to defeat King Piccolo at any cost. Thankfully, soon after, the rest of the group shows up. Bulma has been flying around and eventually finds Tien and Yamcha, and her ship lands with Kakarot, Raditz, Chichi, and Krillin aboard. They don't even need to ask what happened. They see Roshi and Chaozu lying there dead, and before anyone can say anything, Raditz and Kakarot immediately depart. They're infuriated. The good thing is they recovered from the water, meaning they're stronger, but now they're blinded by rage and going right for King Piccolo. But they might actually have a shot. The Ultra Divine Water made them considerably stronger, and now the true power of it will have to be seen against King Piccolo. Everyone's shocked to see how quickly they leave, but Krillin actually tells them everything's okay. He's pretty distraught by Roshi dying, so he feels pretty much the same way as everyone else right now. But he feels confident that Raditz and Kakarot are now strong enough to defeat the Demon King. He saw their increase in power firsthand, and knows they're beyond anyone else in the group right now, and there's no way anyone's gonna stop the twins. They're set on going towards and defeating Piccolo, at any cost. And eventually, they're able to actually track down Piccolo, killing some of his minions along the way. Since they were tournament contestants, Piccolo is aware of these two, but he's surprised to see how strong they actually are. They do end up making their way towards the Demon King, and now the fighting begins. So how would this fight end up? Well, even when he was severely injured, Goku was still enough to defeat King Piccolo. So two of them here being potentially even stronger than Kid Goku, well, it's safe to say they take a win. It might be a bit of a struggle too, but for sure they got this in the bag. As the twins finish off the Demon King, he spits out an egg. Unbeknownst to the two of them, his reincarnation, his final son. King Piccolo is defeated, as Raditz and Kakarot have avenged their master, as well as Chaozu and everyone else that was killed by King Piccolo and his minions. What now though? There's no Shenron because he was killed by King Piccolo, so they can't even revive anyone. They return to Grandpa Gohan, somehow victorious but defeated at the same time. Gohan's pretty distraught by this as well, and suggests that they might have to go and see Korin. Maybe his wisdom will help them somehow, so they could return back to his tower once again, to see what he has to say. Pretty much out of options, they do so, but there does appear to be some hope. Korin eventually is able to direct them to the top of his tower, to an area where the Guardian of Earth lives. Since this guy apparently created the Dragon Balls, they might find some answers up there. Unknowingly to everyone else, Roshi and Chaozu suddenly get revived, since the Dragon Balls are fixed. It appears Raditz and Kakarot were able to meet Kami, and figure out a way to revive everyone, but seemingly they're going to be up there training for quite a while. It's good to know they at least got everyone revived though. And now we get another little time skip before the 23rd World Tournament. Of course everyone is pretty surprised to see Kakarot and Raditz there. Not only do they look different, but everyone could tell that they're much stronger now. That training with Kami seems to have really paid off. So in terms of the matchups here, what will happen? Well, Mercenary Tao wouldn't even make it in. Chaozu would mess with the matchups again, and this would of course mean that Raditz replaces Tao. As for the rest of the roster though, it's pretty much the same. Tien will be facing Raditz this time around. Raditz isn't even comparable to Tien anymore. It goes pretty much like Tien's fight with Goku. They start out both holding back, but then eventually Raditz is able to get the win. their rivalry is sparked once again, and it was an enjoyable fight for both of them. Next up is Kakarot versus Chichi, and it goes pretty normal, except Chichi's identity isn't hidden, and she's actually pretty strong now. She's nowhere near Kakarot's level, but with all the training she's been doing, I'd say she might even be comparable to someone like Krillin, so she is noticeably more powerful. However, Kakarot will still win, and there's no proposal because they're already technically engaged, but I guess they're gonna get married after this tournament. Fun stuff. Piccolo fights Krillin next, and that goes normal. Same for Yamcha versus Shen. And that eventually leads to a really interesting fight once again. Kakarot versus Raditz. It's weird how it panned out like this because I didn't plan it this way, I just replaced Tao with Raditz. And looking at the matchups, I feel it would end up going like this in the semifinals. So once again we have a fight between the two brothers. Things will really heat up here. The two have been training together and are pretty much comparable in strength. They had the same masters, the same training, they've learned the same techniques, and have pretty much had the same experiences. So it's pretty hard to decide who would win this one because they're so equal in power and strategy. Ultimately though, Raditz's fight with Tien was much more intense than Kakarot's fight with Chichi, and although it is a very small increase, even this short fight might make the difference here because of how equal they are. Raditz's fight with Tien may have made him grow a little bit, not to mention he might steal some techniques from Tien, and it is a very long, drawn out, and close fight, but Raditz will eventually end up taking the win, finally defeating his brother here. But will he actually win the tournament? He's wanted this for so long. Kakarot's already done so, and now it's his turn hopefully. Piccolo fights Shen, and that goes normally with Kami being contained. And that eventually leads to a fight between Piccolo and Raditz. And this fight is similar to Goku's fight with Piccolo in the original story. Raditz is pretty hesitant to fight Piccolo because he knows that if he kills him, that would mean that Kami dies too. He's not sure if he wants to take that risk. There may be some other way for him to defeat Piccolo though. Overall, I don't see how this would go much differently from Goku's fight with Piccolo. Raditz has had some pretty similar experiences here, and Piccolo is the same Piccolo. The only difference I might be able to see is that Raditz would be stronger than where Goku is in the main story, as is Kakarot, since they face much more danger and have had more effective training. The people watching the fight would want to step in and help Raditz, but Kakarot would stop them. Kakarot tells everyone that this is Raditz's fight, and the two brothers understand each other. Kakarot's aware that his brother wants to do this solo, and he knows that Raditz will be able to accomplish that. And if worse comes to worse, they can jump in to help out, but it doesn't seem like it's going that way. Raditz seems to have the upper hand here, and thankfully, he's actually able to win against Piccolo. And I don't think he would call the fight too early like Goku did. Goku originally got distracted and that left him open for Piccolo attacking him. But here, Raditz would probably make sure the deed is done. Piccolo is defeated, and Raditz is declared the winner of the tournament. The brothers even decide to give him a Senzu Bean, hoping to potentially see and fight him again. Raditz enjoyed that, and Kakarot wants his turn as well. So Piccolo goes off on his own, and the Earth appears to be saved for now. Will we finally have some peacetime? Well, kinda. A few years pass, and a reunion is made at Kame House. Everyone's gonna meet up once again, and it should be a pretty fun reunion. Kakarot arrives with Chichi there too, and their new son Gohan. They meet up with quite a few people there. Obviously Roshi's there as well as Krillin. Bulma's there too, and so is Raditz. Even Tien, Launch, and Chaozu are there. Tien has stuck around more since he's focused on his rivalry with Raditz, and of course he gets more involved with the group. He was training under Roshi for a bit after all, so of course he's going to be around more. Even Grandpa Gohan's there, happy to be with this group once more, and even getting to see a new member of the family, named after him. Where's Yamcha though? Well, he probably still would have his issues with Bulma in terms of their relationship, so I wonder how that's going to pan out. And you're probably wondering, will Raditz ever end up with someone? I'll actually leave that up to a poll so you guys can decide. With Tien still around, I feel like Launch would probably end up with him, so no Raditz and Launch this time because I'm sure that would be a big suggestion. So for Raditz I'm going to leave two options because there's really no other choices. Do you think it's possible he could end up with Bulma, or do you think he's just going to stay single for now? Let's see what you guys think. Make sure to vote on the poll and let me know what option you voted for and why. The great thing here is the reunion is actually normal. Raditz isn't the bad guy here, he's not going to arrive on Earth and cause havoc. Everything's pretty Gucci. Everyone has a fun time, and eventually, nighttime arrives and everyone's about to leave. But the unexpected happens. Far away on some other side of the planet, what seems to be a meteor crashes from space. Unbeknownst to everyone else, this is no meteor, it's a space pod. A man emerges from the space pod, and he intends on cleaning up this planet and then selling it for a hefty price. It seems like they'll be able to profit off this, and the population here is pretty weak. He checks his scouter, and then he sees something. There's some pretty strong power levels nearby, so he checks it out, first going to Piccolo. But then this man notices a group of powers close by, and all these powers seem pretty hefty. It might be worth checking out, just to see if this is an outlier, or if this is actually what Earth's population might be like. At Kame House, as everyone's preparing to leave, a large, bald, mustached man lands. Yep, his scouter was reading right. These guys are pretty strong. Oh, and what's that? Some of them have tails. It appears these two might be Saiyans. The man slyly introduces himself. His name is Nappa. He's pretty surprised to find two Saiyans here. He was just gonna slaughter everyone on Earth, but seeing these two Saiyans here, he has a different idea. He wants to try and recruit them. He asks how they got here, and they don't really remember. They were sent here a while ago when they were pretty young, and Nappa realizes that this was around the time of Planet Vegeta's destruction. Nappa assumes they're normal Saiyans, and he tells them his plan, asking them to join. They're already aware of them being Saiyans, so they don't need to be filled in on that. But they are surprised to hear what this guy's saying, though. He wants to take over Earth and then sell it, under the orders of some guy named Frieza? They're obviously not going to let that fly. Nappa presses more and more, and then eventually he runs out of patience, getting pretty furious, and he decides to force them to join. Quickly, he lets out a massive wave of pressurized air that knocks everyone over, and decides to take a hostage. There's a Saiyan child here, and he might make for a good soldier. He's going to kidnap this kid and take him away with him. So Nappa immediately retreats with Gohan. Kid Gohan, not Grandpa Gohan. It's ironic because now Raditz is the hero here and he's going to work on saving Gohan. But how are they supposed to defeat this guy? He seems crazy powerful. Piccolo even makes his presence known and tells them that he had an encounter with this guy too. Yes, he's really strong, but maybe if they work together they might be able to defeat him. But Kakarot and Raditz really don't have any other ideas. The good thing here is that they have more fighters now. Besides Bulma, as well as Grandpa Gohan and Roshi who feel like they're out of their league here, we have Kakarot, Raditz, Chichi, Tien, and Krillin, with Piccolo also joining as well. It'll be quite the tough battle, even though it's a 6v1, since they'll be outmatched in power. Let's actually cover some power levels here. Nappa, when he first arrived on Earth, was at a power level of 4,000. In the original story, he does arrive a year later from now. So since he's a year early, that means he has a year less of time beforehand that he spent doing whatever he was doing before, because of how long the journey to Earth takes. He probably missed out on a couple of missions, so here I'm going to put him at a power level of 3,400. Still very strong compared to everyone, but a little bit weaker than normal. Raditz is actually pretty strong. You may think I'm overpowering him, but I have an explanation why. He's at a power of 690. He had his fight with Piccolo, so he got a bigger boost in power than his brother got, and he hasn't been doing anything for these past few years besides training because he's not married or anything. He's just been constantly getting stronger, so he's even ahead of his brother. But Kakarot's no slouch either. He's at a power level of 460. He has been doing some training actually because Chi-Chi's a lot more open to it. She is a fighter here after all. He did of course need to take some time off once Gohan was born, but he eventually started getting back into it, and he's stronger than he is in the normal story. Piccolo would be around the same power, we're going to put him at 322. As for Tien, we'll put him at 300, and Krillin at 270. They're also stronger than normal since Krillin had better experiences as a kid and got more training in, and since Tien's been around, they've actually trained together as well as under Roshi, so they are stronger than normal. Chi-Chi's actually quite strong too. She's at a power level of 250. That makes her the weakest of the group right now, but consider this, in the original story, Tien was at a power level of 250, so she's about as strong as Tien is originally in the Saiyan Saga. Well, during this part at least, Tien gets a lot stronger later on, but that's besides the point. Chi-Chi may have the lowest power level here, but she's stronger than some other characters in canon at this point, which is pretty impressive. And the thing is with Goku and Chi-Chi training, even Gohan got some training in. We might get to see a little bit of that later on. They chase down Nappa and eventually encounter him, with Gohan stuck in a space pod nearby. Pretty familiar, but also kinda different. Nappa remarks how weird this planet is. Saiyans, Namekians, and then these weak Earthlings. Wait, what the hell are Namekians? Does he mean Piccolo? That's news to them, they just thought he was some slug demon dude or whatever. Vegeta ends up coming on Nappa's scouter asking what the status is on his mission, and he tells Vegeta that he's encountered two Saiyans here that want to pick a fight, as well as a half Saiyan child. This kinda intrigues Vegeta, and he feels Nappa can handle it. Nappa throws his scouter to the side and prepares to fight, as does the entire group. Right here it's technique versus power. They're able to hold the Saiyan invader off, but Nappa is still too strong for them. Krillin even tries his Destructo Disc, which nearly hits Nappa until Nappa dodges it at the last second. Nappa's pretty angry now. Everyone's fighting to hold him off. And Piccolo eventually gets his idea to charge a Special Beam Cannon, but Tien has another idea, and he consults Piccolo about it. Piccolo might be knowledgeable about this technique, so he asks Piccolo for his help. Tien and Piccolo briefly depart from the fight, filling everyone in on what they're planning. It actually seems like a good idea, so they go with it. During the middle of the fight, something crazy and unexpected happens to Nappa. For some odd reason out of nowhere, Nappa gets stretched up into the sky. Wait, this looks familiar. Is that? Yes, it's the Mafuba. With the help of Piccolo, Tien was able to use the Mafuba, and they actually had a pretty creative way of doing it. Using Piccolo's turban, which actually seems pretty durable and hard, that acted as a makeshift container, while they used pieces of Piccolo's cape to wrap it up, and used some mud on the ground to write a seal on it. The night sky becomes a brilliant green color. Illuminated by the energy of Tien's borrowed technique, Nappa's thrown into Piccolo's turban, and then he's sealed up. The Mufuba actually worked, and it was a pretty genius technique to use against him. There seemingly was no way to defeat him, even the special beam cannon might not have worked. Good going, Tien, he basically just saved Earth. There is a bit of an issue though. They end up finding Nappa's scouter, which he threw aside at the beginning of the battle, and it was on the whole time. Vegeta's been listening in, and he's furious. He has to do this job himself now and clean up Earth, as well as freeing Nappa from whatever technique they just used. Well, if you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. So Vegeta promises, he'll be at Earth in a year to clean it up, and these two low-class Saiyans, Kakarot and Raditz, they won't get in the way at all. Earth will be completely wiped clean, and then they could finally sell it like Frieza wanted. Sure, it's a pretty cheap planet, so they don't really care about it too much, but Vegeta's more concerned about the principle. He wants this job done right, and he wants to defeat these two Saiyans for good for making a mockery of him and Nappa. With the Dragon Team having received that threat, we're going to leave this part off here for now. So with Vegeta on the way, the group really only has one response for it. They have to train and prepare somehow. So, what's the best course of action? Well, at least for a few months, Piccolo's going to be going off on his own because he doesn't really want to train with everyone else. But they all plan right now to head to Kami to train. Besides Kakarot and Raditz, this will probably be very beneficial for them because they'll get their first experience training with him. Kakarot and Raditz decide that they're going to train on their own as well, but first, Kakarot and Chichi discuss something. Gohan came up to them and asked something. He wanted to help, but he wasn't sure how. Isn't 4 kinda young to fight? Well, without a doubt, everyone could tell that Gohan has potential within him, but he just can't start training with Kami right now. And I mean, it would be pretty good for him to prepare to fight in the future. Even if he's not involved here, it'll be a good skill for him to develop early on. Even though he's young, they have a good place to take him right now. They consult with Grandpa Gohan and Roshi, who are going to try training the young child. If he even has half as much potential as Kakarot or Raditz, he'll be a very powerful fighter. While she does want to go train with Kami, Chichi of course wants to be around Gohan, so she sticks with training with Roshi and Gohan. Well, both Gohans. And with all that settled, Kakarot and Raditz decide to head off on their own to train together, with Kakarot trying to catch up to his brother who's far ahead. After some time training, they remember something that they rarely ever used, and it might be worthwhile to train with it. One night there is a full moon, and while they would normally avoid it, they realize that they still have their tails and could use this to their advantage. While they might not be able to use it at will during the fight, training as a grade 8 probably would be very beneficial for them and it will allow them to get ahead faster. Plus, in the near future, in case something does happen, they'll have the form under control. Whenever the moon is full, they decide to use it as an opportunity to train. Of course, it's not full all the time, but whenever it does become full, these nights are probably the most beneficial for their training. Plus, they do learn how to gain control of these forms. And as more time passes, Gohan eventually finishes with his training as well, and he decides to go see Kami alongside everyone else, including Chichi. Roshi and Grandpa Gohan decide to tag along as well, wanting to see how their students perform, since everyone there is basically their student. And even though they are kind of behind in terms of power, they do want to help a bit. So even if they don't expect to be fighting on the front lines, they could at least participate in some of the training to coach people, and even see what Kami's up to. Kakarot and Raditz are seeing diminishing gains over time, and they decide to consult Kami to see what they could do next. Kami already knows that if they train here on the lookout, they probably won't see much gains either. Kami does have one idea though. Maybe they could see King Kai, and possibly training with him will really help. The only issue is though that King Kai probably won't be accepting visitors, especially if they're not dead. So he decides to ask. Knowing the situation on Earth right now, King Kai surprisingly accepts this, as long as they're able to cross Snake Way. Kakarot and Raditz head up there, each eating a senzu bean so they're filled up while they fly across Snake Way. Yeah, they're not going to be running this, they have flight by now and this is the fastest way. So in a few days, they arrive there, and once they make King Kai laugh, they're granted access to train on his planet. Now, it's time for them to get adjusted to 10 times gravity and learn some new techniques from him. Back on Earth, everyone continues their training as well, growing much stronger while they train with Kami. Of course, it's a huge adjustment for Gohan, but as for the rest of the humans, they're seeing some really great gains. And one of the biggest things here is that they actually have Chichi there as well, so they have an extra fighter. And while they're not training too much, Grandpa Gohan and Master Roshi are doing something similar, seeing if they can empower themselves anyway and help the group. Let's fast forward a bit, about a day before Vegeta arrives on Earth. Kakarot and Raditz rush back from King Kai's planet, having completed their training for now. They also do need to get back on Earth before Vegeta arrives, so they thank King Kai and leave the planet, being able to get across Snake Way really quickly. Unlike Goku in the original story, these two aren't going to be late coming back to Earth. With two of them there, one of them most likely would bring this up so they would know to leave early on. And that means it's time to cover some power levels. Yay! Question mark. As for Raditz, he's the strongest of the group with a whopping power of 6,000. Kakarot's not far behind at a nice 5,500. Piccolo stays relatively the same at 4,000, which is a little bit higher than normal. He didn't have to spend time training Gohan and he was always focused on himself, so it allowed him to get a little bit ahead. Moving on to the humans, Ten Shinhan is at 3,500, Chichi's at 3,000, Krillin's at 3,000, and Yamcha is at 2,000. Below that, we have Kid Gohan, who surprisingly is equal to Yamcha here at 2,000 as well, followed by Chaozu, Roshi, and Grandpa Gohan, who are all 1,000. While individually they won't do much against Vegeta, combined, they outnumber him and might be able to overpower him somehow, but it definitely will be tough. They wait preparing for Vegeta's arrival, and they eventually sense him coming closer to the planet. Too bad it's midday because that means Kakarot and Raditz can't use Great Ape, right? Well, maybe they get to use it after all. In a city not too far away, a ship crash lands, with the entire city blown up by Vegeta in one swipe. These Earthlings seem weak. How did Nappa and Raditz lose? Vegeta activates his scouter, and then he finds the true prizes. It seems humans aren't as weak as he thought after all. He detects some pretty high power levels, but they don't match up to him at all. They're all in the hundreds or low thousands, but he doesn't know that they're actually suppressing their power. They wait in a wasteland as Vegeta meets up with them. He sees 11 people waiting to fight the prince, and these odds seem really nice for him. He's had to deal with larger groups of people, so this is really nothing. The group plans to fight first, but in case that doesn't go well, there is a certain plan that they have that could end it really quickly, and it involves Ten Shinhan using the Mafuba again. It seems like a flawless plan, but Vegeta is prepared for the worst. He could already tell they're preparing to use the technique, and from the scouter transmissions beforehand, he decides that Ten Shinhan and Piccolo are his biggest threats, thinking that they're the ones needed to use the technique. Quickly, as they're preparing to use this, Vegeta goes full power and kills both of them. He's here for a real fight, not for whatever magic they use against Nappa. What's a Namekian doing here anyways? What a freakish planet. Everyone is just surprised because it happened so quickly. He casually just killed the two of them, with seemingly no warning beforehand. Kakarot and Raditz are especially angered at the loss of Ten Shinhan, and partially feeling the same for Piccolo because he made an effort to turn into a better person. And it also means everyone lost their teacher Kami. The battle hasn't even begun, and they already lost 3 people. Frustrated by this, Roshi even contemplates using the Mafuba himself, and he came prepared with capsules for it. However, he's stopped by Grandpa Gohan, not wanting to lose another person because he knows for sure that this technique would kill Roshi, and it might not even work. Disappointedly, Roshi agrees and backs down, but still keeping this in mind. If he somehow is able to pull it off, that's a guaranteed victory for everyone. The fight begins, and Kakarot and Raditz immediately use Kaioken ×2, and together, the two of them are actually a great match for Vegeta. With just Kaioken ×2, these two alone collectively overpower Vegeta. Plus, they have everyone else fighting. They deal some really good damage to Vegeta and seem to have the upper hand, until Vegeta decides to pull out one of his secret techniques. Looking around, it seems like Kakarot and Raditz don't have tails. Well, at least to his knowledge, they're hiding them right now, mainly due to them being a weak spot. Realizing this, Vegeta wants to use this opportunity to create an artificial moon, becoming a great ape and overpowering everyone else. Preparing a ball of energy in his hands, he flings an artificial moon up into the sky, telling everyone to prepare for their demise as he transforms into a great ape. While this lowers his power a bit, the trade-off is amazing because he could transform. Kakarot and Raditz look up in the sky, and they're amazed and happy to see this. Vegeta is confused. He thought they didn't have tails. But as he transforms, he sees something that terrifies him. The two of them reveal their tails to Vegeta as they also transform in response, telling Gohan to shield his eyes so he doesn't transform too. Now as a great ape, Vegeta's in a sticky situation. Not only has his power been lowered by creating the artificial moon, but he has to take on 2 great apes now. The upside here is that they can't use Kaioken with Great Ape because they never thought they'd ever do this, and they don't know how they would accomplish that. So Vegeta is still at advantage in terms of power, but there's a bunch of other fighters around him as well as the 2 Great Apes that he's currently fighting. He tries his best and they fight well against him, but Vegeta is causing some real havoc. Thankfully, all the humans have a plan. Knowing the tail is a weak point, they decide to attack it, thinking it'll hurt Vegeta a lot. Krillin launches a massive Destructo Disc, but Vegeta jumps over it at the last second, confused as to how they knew that the tail is the weak point, and how cutting off his tail would turn him back to normal. As he's midair, he feels a sharp pain in his tail, as another Destructo Disc is launched his way by Chichi. What, you think she wasn't going to learn a technique like that when training? I mean, come on, the thing's broken, so she's going to steal Krillin's spotlight here. It's a good thing she decided to train with this technique instead of learning something from Ten Shinhan or Yamcha, because by doing so, now Vegeta reverts to his normal state, and Chichi saved the day here. Sorry for stealing your thunder, Krillin. Vegeta's back to normal, panting and damaged, with 2 great apes closing in on his location. They didn't even realize this would happen if they got their tails sliced off, so now they decide to protect their tails. But Vegeta has one last trump card. He could tell that he's not going to win this fight, so he might as well take down everyone with him. Mid-air, he begins charging his energy, while also focusing on using mobility to dodge attacks from the great apes. He's able to fake them out multiple times, and then as he's charging the attack, he flies far away so they can't interrupt him. He's going to blow up Earth, and by running away, he might be able to get to his ship in time to escape. The group attempts to chase him, but he makes a quick escape, and before they can catch up, his beam is fully charged. As everyone's flying towards him, he aims towards Earth, but while mid-air, Roshi quickly throws down a capsule, which turned into a small container. Without hesitation, he uses the Mafuba. Vegeta is caught up in a whirlwind, as everyone else looks over and sees what Roshi is doing. Grandpa Gohan tells him not to do it, but in a strained voice, Roshi says that he must. Thankfully, it's successful. He slams Vegeta down into the container as he falls to the ground, putting the lid and seal on it in his last breath. He gives a weary thumbs up and smile as he once again collapses and dies from this technique. Everything goes quiet. For the first time in a while, Kakarot and Raditz felt something that they haven't experienced since King Piccolo, true loss and sadness. Everyone is equally speechless, with Kid Gohan more so scared than anything, and the rest of Roshi's students in disbelief. They can't even feel anger because Vegeta is defeated, but their friend Ten Shinhan, their teachers Kami and Roshi, and their new rival Piccolo are all dead. Possibly forever because there's no Dragon Balls now. Everyone is sad about it, but Kakarot and Raditz feel the most of all. Not thinking rationally, they feel guilt just for being Saiyans, the thing that Vegeta was seeking out. It's their fault that Vegeta came here in the first place. And although Vegeta's gone, they still couldn't do enough to save their friends. The fake moon is dissipated and they finally transform back to normal. Tired out, almost completely out of energy, they let out a burst of anger. And briefly, their ki spikes dramatically. As they yell, everyone looks over, and it almost looks as if they turned golden. The twins pass out from exhaustion, and everyone is equally confused and scared about what they just saw. Everyone here trained under Roshi, alongside Ten Shinhan, and some even under Kami, so they're all just depressed. Plus Kakarot and Raditz just showed off this scary power. They pack up and head home, and Krillin starts thinking. He might have an idea. Vegeta made some remark about Piccolo being a Namekian, which would mean Kami is probably one as well. If they're the source of the Dragon Balls, do other Namekians exist somewhere in the universe? Maybe he's being too hopeful. Following the victory, if you could even call it that, Bulma and Dr. Brief are now working on a new spaceship, utilizing Saiyan space pods, and eventually with some help from Popo, they find Kami's old ship. A substantial amount of progress is being made, and soon enough, they'll have a brand new ship ready to fly to Namek. And while all this is going on, according to the poll a few videos ago, Raditz is now hanging out with Bulma a bit, if you know what I mean. But besides that, he is dealing with something else right now. He and Kakarot are discussing what happened before during the fight with Vegeta. What was that power that they felt? They both had the same exact feeling. And from what they remember, they felt a dramatic boost in power from it. And while they blacked out briefly after, from what they heard from the others, apparently they were surrounded by a golden aura, and their hair even looked gold. Could this possibly be a transformation that they didn't know about before? The thing is, here it seems like a Saiyan trait, because if it weren't a Saiyan exclusive thing, Krillin, Chichi, and Yamcha probably would have had the same thing happen to them as well. So it definitely has to be something exclusive to their race. Vegeta and Nappa are sealed right now, but the twins know that those two Saiyans are the only people that could probably have answers for them, because they don't really know where else they'll get answers about Saiyans, but it's not like they're going to release them now. They'll consider doing that later. It's more important right now to focus on reviving everyone. Although this does stick with the two twins, Kakarot and Raditz want to pursue this power, so for the time being they decide to train, trying to see if they can get this transformation once again, or at least trying to surpass Nappa and Vegeta in terms of power. Because the thing is, if they do get strong enough, then they'll be able to release Nappa and Vegeta without any threat, and they can ask them whatever questions they want. It is risky, but the information could potentially be very useful. After some time, the ship is completed. And the thing is here, no one's actually in the hospital. Question is, who's gonna go to Namek? Bulma's obviously gonna go, and Raditz will probably tag along with her. Maybe they can get some nice alone time. Oh, but then Krillin jumps in as well. Rest in peace, Raditz. Gohan actually decides to stay back this time, training with Kakarot and Chichi, as well as keeping up with his studying. This leaves Bulma, Raditz, and Krillin to depart towards Namek. It will take a bit of time though. Meanwhile on Earth, Kakarot obviously stayed back, wanting to figure out what he could do about that transformation, all while training with Chichi and Gohan. But first, he tries something different. Trying to copy Vegeta, Kakarot tries to see if he can learn the artificial moon technique, which would allow him to transform into a great ape anytime he wanted. It does take a lot of time and effort, but from what Kakarot saw and remembered, he eventually is able to emulate the technique, and he's happy about it. I mean, the dude is a prodigy after all. Remember how quickly he learned the Kamehameha? This technique will be pretty great if Raditz learns it as well once he gets back. But this is good because for now, Kakarot can actually train in his great ape form, kinda like he did with Raditz before, but now he can do it whenever he pleases, instead of waiting for the right time for a full moon to appear. This could be very useful to rely on if he could work around the power drain that comes from making the fake moon. And on top of that, training while in Great Ape allows him to get more control of the form, and it lets him to grow at higher levels. He continues this while Chichi trains Gohan, helping him learn martial arts and math, or whatever he's learning at that age. All the while, Raditz, Bulma, and Krillin eventually arrive on Namek. This planet seems odd but sorta peaceful. The thing is, there's also no Frieza here, at least not yet, because he doesn't know about the Dragon Balls. They were never mentioned to Nappa or Vegeta, so the word never got back to the Frieza Force about their existence. Meaning, Namek is actually safe for now. The three Earthlings go on a scavenger hunt for Dragon Balls, and this eventually leads Raditz to Guru, as he tries to locate one of the balls. Guru judges that they're worthy to get the Dragon Balls, because they're using it for a selfless wish by reviving their friends. They went through all the effort of building a ship and traveling all the way across space to this planet, just to bring their friends back to life. Plus, two of the people being revived are Namekians, and Guru's happy that they're reviving one of their own. Wow, that actually sounds kind of racist now that I say it, like Guru's some sort of Namekian supremacist or something. I mean, the dude is hundreds of years old after all, I wouldn't be surprised. Jokes aside, Raditz is granted that last Dragon Ball, and Guru actually begins to bring up the past of the two Namekians from Earth, and how they used to be united as one. Because once Raditz mentioned that they both died from one of them dying, that's how he figured this out. And he briefly mentions, if they were to merge into one Namekian like they were before, they'd be much stronger than ever before. Guru also senses something within Raditz, and it's a great potential that he feels. He's impressed with the cause that the Earthlings are here for, and decides as a gift, he wants to awaken Raditz's potential. Raditz is speechless, he never would have expected this. And Guru awakens his hidden potential. The Saiyan is amazed and he thanks Guru for his help. But Guru did sense something unsettling within Raditz, a deep anger, caused by what happened with Roshi, as well as a sense of anxiety over something that happened earlier on. But on the outside, Raditz seems happy-go-lucky as ever. As Raditz heads off, Guru ponders. Saiyans seem to be really emotional. What an odd group. Raditz gathers Bulma and Krillin and brings them back to Guru's place. Guru also offers to awaken Krillin's potential, but besides that, they're here so they can get the wish. With Nail as a translator, Porunga was summoned, and they find out that they have 3 wishes, but they can only revive one person at a time, which is kind of perfect because they only do need to revive 3 people. Well, there's also whatever Vegeta might have destroyed, but they could fix that with Dragon Balls later on. They would have had to do that with Earth's Dragon Balls anyways because it's multiple people. Piccolo, Ten Shinhan, and Roshi are all revived, and they're all actually with King Kai for the time being. They didn't have enough time to learn Kaioken, but they have been training and thank King Kai for his help, as Piccolo and Roshi head back towards Earth. However, Ten Shinhan stays back and asks something to King Kai. If possible, he wants to continue training with King Kai, in order to learn that Kaioken technique that the twins had, and possibly perfect it for himself. He knows it's risky, but it's worth a shot, and King Kai admires his drive, so he allows him to stay even though he already got revived. Who knows how long he'll be here. In place of Namek, we now enter a brand new saga, and what better name for it than the Super Saiyan Saga. It's going to be sort of brief, but let's start discussing it now. With everyone revived, Raditz, Bulma, and Krillin return to Earth, eager to see those they just revived, and they're terrified when they see a great ape Kakarot. In a deep voice, Kakarot happily greets them, and Raditz is just confused. Why is Kakarot a great ape in the middle of the day? While everyone's been on Namek, Kakarot's actually gained full control over this form, because he was trying to see if he could figure out anything about that form they accessed before with the golden hair. He was hoping this form would give him some leads as to how to get that other transformation, but from his experience, nothing about the Great Ape form will lead him to getting that gold hair form that he found before. But as a plus, Kakarot can use this form very easily, and he wants to train Raditz to use it as well. He also notes that Raditz had a huge increase in strength somehow, and Raditz explains that he got this from Guru on Namek. To try and one-up his brother, Kakarot also shows off something cool that he learned, as the entire area shakes when he goes Kaioken on top of Great Ape. The thing is, he can't use this at very high levels, and it is still very strenuous to use Kaioken, but the 2 multipliers together give him a huge boost in power. Let's say he can max out at around ×4 with Great Ape. Raditz thinks this is awesome, and he gives his brother a fist bump. Only someone as crazy as his brother could think of something like this. Once again, they're like 2 kids in a candy store, and they go off and train together once more. Piccolo and Roshi are now back on Earth, and they heard about Ten Shinhan staying with King Kai, because everyone was wondering why he hasn't returned, but they assure their friends that everything is fine. And now, things seem pretty peaceful. Raditz is actually ahead in terms of power, at least in his base form, but Kakarot has mastery over Great Ape, and for brief periods, he can stack Kaioken on top of it. They both have their own unique paths in terms of power now, and their training is paying off. However, they feel like they're forgetting about something. Oh yeah, they did want to figure out about that gold hair form from before. They don't free Vegeta and Nappa just yet, and instead, they want to train and see what they could find out about it. One day, Kakarot tries to replicate the feeling he had when Orochi died. Stressing himself and trying to emulate that anger from before, he focuses, trying to remember the feeling of transforming, wondering how to bring on the change. With all this focus and effort, briefly, he's able to go Super Saiyan, but immediately loses the form and returns to base right after. This is a huge step though. They just saw it once more, they know they can access it. He tries it again, trying to replicate it from before, and it's a little bit easier this time, but he still loses it right after he gets it. But they're making progress. He and Raditz continue trying to do this, and it seems now they're able to hold it for brief periods of time, so they focus on trying to improve it once they both unlock it. They don't really know what to call this form, so they just refer to it as a superpower of theirs. And this also gets them thinking. They wonder if Gohan could do it as well. I mean, he is half Saiyan. It might not work, but it's worth a shot. It seems they don't need to free Vegeta and Nappa, at least not now. Years go by, and things are going pretty well. Raditz and Bulma are finally together, and they actually have a son. I don't know what he'd look like just yet, but as for a name, we're sticking with Trunks. And as for Kakarot and Chichi, they have another son which they named Goten. And this time around, there's no future time traveler to come help them out. Raditz and Kakarot grew up in pretty good conditions here. Grandpa Gohan never died and he was always there to raise them. As for the origin of the heart virus, there's no definite origin of where it came from, but two big theories say that it either came from how Goku lives as a child, since he essentially lived like a wild animal in the woods, or it came from Yardrat. And since Kakarot and Raditz grew up normally here, and neither of them went to Yardrat, there's no heart virus, they're going to be completely okay. Kakarot begins thinking though, if he could stack Kaioken on Great Ape, he wonders if he could do it with this gold-haired form as well. It seems too advanced for him, but he'll keep it in mind. More years of peace pass, and everyone keeps training. The two twins work together, also training with some of their friends including Gohan and Chichi, and everyone's seeing a net gain in power. But now, the Super Saiyan saga comes to an end. The brief period of peace and training where everyone was trying to learn Super Saiyan is now over, because we're about to transition into another arc. Raditz is just chilling at Capsule Corp, and then one day on the news he sees something that terrifies him. In some city not too far away, there's two people, seemingly teenagers, that are blowing everything up. And as you could guess, that's not really a good thing to see on the news. Apparently these two individuals have superpowers, it seems like, and aren't ordinary humans. This is definitely something that Raditz wants to check out and see if he can help with. So he spreads the word and everyone decides to check it out. The group arrives in the city, and they find another pair of twins. A guy with black hair and a girl with blonde hair. Instead of 19 and 20 here, it's actually 17 and 18. Everything in the city is decimated. The group tries to fight these two androids, but they can't do anything. They were completely demolished, but they're all relatively okay now. It's good that they made it out of there alive. They still don't realize who these two villains are, but Kakarot and Raditz pick up on something. The guy they were fighting. On his shirt, he had a logo that they remember all too well. The logo of the Red Ribbon Army. This is obviously no good. Meanwhile, on King Kai's planet, he's watching. And after years of training Ten Shinhan, he thinks it's time for him to finally head back to Earth. He's picked up some unique techniques in the afterlife, including whatever King Kai has taught him. And he's starting to see diminishing gains, so it's finally time for him to go back. He was training to better himself and surpass his rivals, Raditz and Kakarot. And it's a good thing that he's been working towards this. He feels maybe he could head back to Earth and help them. Meanwhile, Raditz and Kakarot try to figure out what to do, both coming up with ideas of their own. After escaping, the group's not really too sure what to do. How are they supposed to counter the androids at their current strength? They'd have to train for years on end probably, and they can't wait that long. Earth is at risk. Wait a second. Years of training, but they don't have enough time for it. Kakarot and Raditz begin thinking, and the two of them look at each other and immediately get an idea. Grinning with anticipation. This was something they couldn't really manage as kids. Kami tried to have them do this training, but they weren't strong enough for it and it didn't really pan out. But at their current strength, this might work. The Room of Spirit and Time. That's what the two of them are thinking about. And they suggest it to the group. Naturally, they all accept it. It does sound tough, but it might actually work. So they all head up to the lookout welcomed by Kami. And it's imperative that they send in their strongest people first. So Kakarot and Raditz are going to train. But Kakarot actually goes against this. He would love to train with Raditz and he might want to do that later, but he has another idea right now. Instead of going in with Raditz, he wants to go in with Gohan. He's seen Gohan's potential, Chichi's seen it too, and so has Raditz. Because remember, Chichi's a fighter here, so she's definitely seen this before. But they all know that Gohan has something within him, and he just needs help accessing it. Raditz sees where his brother is coming from, and he agrees with this. He's seen what his nephew is capable of, but he still has a long way to go. Maybe Kakarot can whip him into shape. The thing is that Chichi does want to join, but she knows Kakarot and Gohan's training will be too much for her. It would have been nice to have some family training, but she could head in later. She knows that right now it's important for them to get as much training as they can at the highest levels they can, and she doesn't want to hold them back. And in the meantime, she can still train with everyone else in the lookout, including Kami. And as for Raditz, he's gonna head in later. But with who? But then he remembers something. He knows who the perfect training partner could be. He turns to Kami and asks him, because of his connection with the afterlife, could he somehow contact Ten Shinhan and have him come here? Kami doesn't know if he'll be able to convince him, but it's at least worth a shot contacting him. It wouldn't hurt having an extra strong fighter here. He begins talking with King Kai and tells him what's going on. And as soon as Ten Shinhan hears this, he basically rockets off King Kai's planet, thanking him for the training and saying he'll return soon. Within seconds, probably less, he ends up at King Yema's place. Snake Way isn't a challenge for him. And Kami's just shocked at how fast this all happened, because now he teleports to King Yema's place and brings Ten Shinhan back to Earth. This is exactly why he's been training, and he gets filled in on what's happened so far. Just a reminder, he's not actually dead, he's just been training in Otherworld, and he's learned some pretty cool things. Obviously, whatever King Kai could teach, he's basically learned already, but he also got to meet some warriors in Otherworld, and he's developed his techniques further, and he does tell Raditz he was working on learning something but he still hasn't learned it yet. He needed some more time, but he was trying to learn an extremely powerful technique. And he doesn't understand it too much, but he knows it requires 2 users, and it somehow lets them combine. Although only temporarily. And after all this is done on Earth, he's gonna head right back there and learn it. But for now, he's interested in this Room of Spirit and Time thing. And he's definitely gonna help Raditz and everyone out by going in there. And while everyone's on the lookout, it's worth mentioning that Piccolo doesn't end up fusing with Kami. And this means that Cell is going around unchecked. Cell realizes that they're hiding out somewhere right now. No one's gonna interfere with him. And this is great for him. Some might even say this is perfect for him. I'm sorry, that was a bad joke. But it leaves him an opportunity to actually go after the androids without anyone intervening. And considering that they're going around causing havoc, it's not too hard to find them. Cell ends up encountering 16, 17, and 18. And he decides that he's gonna go for a sneak attack. While they're distracted, he jumps in and starts absorbing 18 first. And this means he moves to his semi-perfect form. Also, I do kind of want to bring up something. I've seen a couple comments before asking what would have happened if Cell absorbed 18 first, and I don't think anything really different would happen. He was pre-programmed to become semi-perfect and then perfect anyways, so I don't think the order that he absorbs the 2 androids really matters too much. Not to mention, he's about to absorb 17 right after. 16 and 17 aren't really going to stand a chance against semi-perfect Cell. This results in 16 basically getting killed, and 17 getting absorbed. Of course, everyone on the lookout senses this. There's a huge spike in ki somewhere, and this ki feels vaguely familiar. Almost scary in a way. Not to mention, it's huge. This isn't the androids. They couldn't sense them before. Nervously, the people on the lookout decide to try and find out what the source of this ki is. Although it's obviously dangerous, if they don't find out now, they'll probably find out later and get killed by it. After Cell transforms into his semi-perfect form, they head off the lookout. And then mid-flight, he begins transforming into his perfect form, and they sense another spike in ki. Just as he finishes transforming, a viewing party arrives. Cell is elated right now, especially happy to see these people around him. Particularly one person of interest, Raditz. Sure, he's looking for Kakarot as well, but Raditz is good enough. This group is far too weak to oppose him, and he decides it's rude to not introduce himself. This man is Cell, another android of Dr. Gero's. Although far more advanced than those 2 rust buckets before him. He's the perfect android, the perfect warrior, and the one who'll take down Kakarot and Raditz for good. But he does want to have a little bit of fun while doing it. Sure, he can go around mindlessly destroying everything, or just kill them all right now, but where's the fun in that? Cell deserves better. He decides, why not host a tournament? He'll even give everyone some time to prepare, although it won't do them any good. He decides the tournament is going to be, tomorrow. This is no good, but Raditz sees what Cell's trying to do. He wants to have a good fight, and Raditz decides to appeal to that side. I mean, of course, Cell is part Raditz and Kakarot, so Raditz is going to try to smooth talk him. He tells Cell that he should wait more than a day. It'll give everyone enough time to get stronger, and then he'll have a better fight as a result. Cell's intrigued. Really? How strong can they get within a week? He doesn't believe this will be enough time for them to get on his level, but he'll play along. If Raditz wants an extra week of training, he'll give it to him. You know what? He'll throw Raditz a bone. How about 10 days? The Cell Games, he calls it, will be held in 10 days in this exact spot. Of course he'll build a suitable arena, but he expects to see them here. He tells them to keep a close eye on the news, and he begins preparing his arena. The group is just speechless right now, and obviously, they're pretty worried. How are they supposed to defeat this guy? His power is like nothing they've ever sensed before. Okay, but how did Cell get here though? There was no Trunks before, so how did he get a time machine? Well, Cell did come from a separate timeline, so there's a possibility that his could be unaffected, and he could still come here through a time machine that Trunks had in that timeline, even though he doesn't exist here, or in the other timeline that the future Trunks we know comes from. But if we're being honest here, I haven't done the Cell Saga in a while, so I wanted to include that here. Suspension of disbelief and whatnot. It'll be a good time. Soon enough, Kakarot and Gohan emerge, finally having completed their training, and it turns out Gohan's actually Super Saiyan. And oddly enough, both of them exited the Room of Spirit and Time in Super Saiyan, and they seem calm, not an emotion that they'd normally associate with the form of Super Saiyan. Raditz is intrigued. Has his brother discovered something truly groundbreaking? It turns out he has. Raditz is impressed. Kakarot never ceases to amaze him, but he'll surpass him one way or another. He'll unlock this form as well, and together, the two brothers will be stronger than ever. After filling Kakarot in on what's happened so far, Raditz and Ten Shinhan head in for their training. So how is Ten gonna help in Raditz's training? God, I'm gonna be honest, it's kinda weird calling him Ten. But it's the nickname they use, and it's faster than saying Ten Shinhan, so I'll just do that. Anywho, he's gonna be really helpful here. His training in Otherworld has actually made him a lot stronger. As I mentioned in the previous episodes, he wants to keep up his rivalry with the two Saiyan twins, and he hopes that he's able to surpass them someday. He's still working towards it, and he's gotten greatly stronger, way above any of the other humans, and even someone like Piccolo. He's not on the level of these Super Saiyans, but he actually does know something that might level the playing field. Of course, with all his training, he's practiced Kaioken more. Times 20, that's a joke. How about times 50? Same as Super Saiyan. Even better, in dire moments, he could activate times 100. Although, Ten's base isn't as strong as Raditz's. He still makes for an excellent training partner though, while Raditz pursues Super Saiyan Grade 4, and both of them just try to improve themselves overall. On the outside, Kakarot's a bit worried after sensing Cell's power. Sure, Grade 4 seems strong and all, but will it be enough? Like he thought before, he still wants to try and combine it with Grade 8, but he doesn't have enough real-world experience to do that yet. Although, Grade 4 on its own might be enough. If not him, then maybe Gohan can do it. It's odd. Although Gohan doesn't have too much fighting experience besides some in the Saiyan Saga, Kakarot still feels confident. Raditz and Ten exit the Room of Spirit and Time, and for the remaining few days, everyone rests, with Kakarot, Raditz, and Gohan all remaining in Super Saiyan throughout the entire time. The day of the Cell Games arrives, and the group heads over. So who's gonna face Cell first? Ten hasn't been able to test his power in a while, and this might be a good opportunity for him. Sure, he still feels like he's behind Raditz, Kakarot, and possibly even Gohan right now, but this will be an amazing way to gauge his power. So, he steps up first against Cell. Cell's pretty amused. He expected one of the Saiyans to fight, but instead it's just a human? The two pace themselves, with Cell heavily holding back. But then Ten turns up the heat, going into Kaioken times 20 effortlessly. Cell is shocked to say the least. This caught him kinda off guard. So he increases his power a bit to match. So, times 20 isn't enough. Ten jumps to times 50. And Cell is even more amazed and caught off guard. But this seems like it's Ten's full power. This isn't really a problem for Cell. That's good, Cell's underestimating him. But he still has something else up his sleeve. Although he can only use it once, and if it doesn't work, then he's gonna have to drop out. Powering up further, Ten goes into times 100, and immediately launches a Kikoho towards Cell, quicker than Cell can react. A giant hole is left in the arena, and the attack did directly damage Cell, destroying most of his right side. Although Cell can regenerate, he's still mad. A human was able to do that to him? Having to regenerate from damage like this will definitely lower his energy later on. Even at his max power, 10 still wasn't enough, so he drops out. And the next person up is Kakarot. Cell's not going to play around anymore, because apparently Kakarot's even stronger than 10. So Cell goes full power right from the start. This match goes very similar to how it went with Goku and Cell in the original story, except no instant transmission. Kakarot's able to do some good damage, but ultimately, he can't keep up. Although he picks up on something. Cell can regenerate, but the more he does it, the more tired out he gets. And after doing it so much against Kakarot and even against 10, this leaves him kind of vulnerable. Kakarot then swaps out, but feels that this next fight will be the final one. Cell's really amused to see Gohan's up next. What, this child? Well, it's kind of bad that he underestimates Gohan, because Gohan's actually stronger than Kakarot at this point. And in all honesty, I feel like Gohan would be able to defeat Cell at this point. He's still strong, sure, but after how tired out Cell is, and how close the two are in power, Gohan has a real good shot here. And he's under very different training this time. Kakarot and Goku are not the same. Their fighting styles might be a little bit similar, but the way they go about fights is very different. Kakarot doesn't really have too many qualms about killing, as long as the person is bad and deserves it. And that's gonna rub off on Gohan a bit here. He's even different from his original self. Sure, he still might be pacifistic overall, but against Cell, he doesn't plan on sparing him. To start the fight, Cell throws out a powerful punch against Gohan, underestimating the boy. Gohan immediately dodges this and counters it with a powerful gut punch, then delivering a powerful kick to Cell that sends him flying, hitting a nearby cliff. I should also mention, Mr. Satan is still here, and he's just speechless, but he drums us all up to special effects and stuff. There's no way Cell or that blonde child are that strong, are they? Cell desperately tries to fight Gohan, getting a few hits in, but Gohan outpaces him overall. The fight continues, with Gohan eventually winning. Cell is on his knees cursing everyone, and as a last resort, he lifts his hand up, quickly charging a blast that he plans to send into Earth's core. But Gohan grabs his arm and stops him, once again hitting Cell in the gut with all his power. Cell then ends up regurgitating Android 17. Ew, well that seemed to work, so Gohan does it again. Then Android 18 comes up, and Cell begins morphing back into his imperfect form. Huh, that's kinda funny. This will make it a lot easier. With little effort, Gohan's able to kill imperfect Cell. So, what do they do about the androids here? Well, they eventually regain consciousness and the group doesn't actually know what to do with them. They're prepared to kill them if they need, and it won't really be too much of a fight. And the androids do feel a little bit mixed right now, and ultimately they decide they don't care about Kakarot or Raditz anymore. The group's hesitant about trusting them. Really, after what the androids done, they should just kill the androids right now. But the androids make it clear that they don't care anymore. I mean, Kakarot, Raditz, and their friends did save them from Cell after all. Plus, they don't really want to do what Dr. Gero told them. And even if they did, they know Kakarot and Raditz are way out of their league right now. And awkwardly, they just leave. As everyone watches, they'll make sure to see if the androids cause anything in the future. Hopefully they're on good behavior, otherwise they won't hesitate next time. Like I mentioned, they're not too keen on sparing people. At least not people like the Saiyans or Cell. But the androids at least seem a bit different. They were forced into this after all. Just let them be as they are. Over the next few years, more training begins. Gohan continues training himself, trying to go above Super Saiyan if possible. And of course Kakarot and Raditz train with him as well. Ten returns to Otherworld, trying to learn other types of techniques from there, while the rest of the humans and Piccolo stay on Earth and continue their normal training. After some time passes, I feel Gohan will be able to achieve Super Saiyan 2, with Kakarot and Raditz not far behind. However, this does something different for Kakarot. Seeing Gohan at Super Saiyan 2 amazes him and makes him very proud, but it gets him thinking, if Gohan surpasses Super Saiyan in that way, maybe Kakarot can surpass it in his own way. It might be time to test out that Super Saiyan Great Ape thing right now, and he wants Gohan and Raditz to watch. Kakarot turns into a Great Ape, and although he's a bit hesitant about it because he's not sure what it will do, he turns Super Saiyan, turning his fur golden. Holy crap, this is strong. But Kakarot's out of control right now. He goes berserk, blowing stuff up around them. Good thing they're in a wasteland though. Raditz and Gohan try to fight him, but they can't do anything. Kakarot just casually slaps him to the side. They have to try speaking to him, trying to calm him down, while also trying to shield themselves from the light of the artificial moon, so they don't accidentally turn into a Great Ape as well. Remember, Raditz still has his tail, and Gohan never actually lost his. So this is something they could do. But they don't want to right now. They want to fight Kakarot in Super Saiyan, because really this is the only way they could face him. If they turn into golden apes themselves, then Earth might be destroyed. Eventually, their talk gets through to Kakarot, and he begins focusing again, trying to regain some sort of control. Raditz and Gohan jump out of the way as Kakarot slams his fist to the ground, creating a giant crater, as he struggles to control himself once again. And then he begins shrinking, and shrinking more. He's returning to his normal form. Raditz and Gohan look up and the Great Ape is there no more, and they look towards the crater, hoping that Kakarot's okay. Slowly, over the horizon of the crater, they see Kakarot walk up towards them, but their jaws drop when they see what Kakarot looks like. Even Kakarot himself is confused. They see his eyes look different, he has red fur on him, his hair is longer. What did he just do? And this key, it's unlike anything they've ever sensed before. And all the while, Babidi is watching. That's right, he's already on Earth. And it seems like these guys might be a great source of energy for him. Not to mention, he's about to get 2 brand new servants. After finding some containers buried at the bottom of the sea with some weird seal on them, Babidi and Deborah are about to free these 2 new servants, sensing the evil energy from within the containers. Following Kakarot's crazy discovery, of course, everyone's going to start training towards it. At least the Saiyans are. Imagine the humans trying to get this, huh? Anyways, Kakarot starts training with Raditz and Gohan, trying to obtain this form. The thing is though, Kakarot is so much more experienced with Great Ape, so it's going to take a while for them to catch up to his level, especially for someone like Gohan who has barely even practiced in the form. And another downside, the form is temporary, although it's very potent. Not because of key issues, it's more so because the form can only be sustained for as long as the user can maintain Great Ape. This seems like a feasible drawback, especially given how powerful they are at this point. It's not like GT, Goku, and Vegeta when they got it. They're much weaker. It will be hard to maintain control, especially once an artificial moon dissipates. Under a full moon it's better though, and more well suited for that. After a long while of training, I'm talking years, Gohan and Raditz eventually do get it. And as for the two kids, Goten and Trunks, too bad that having a tail is a recessive trait. They weren't born with it, and that means they're not going to be able to obtain this form anytime soon. Although surprisingly, they were able to get Super Saiyan. They really do want this Great Ape Super Saiyan form, and I feel like that's the name they'll give to it, either that or Super Saiyan 3. But I'm not going to call it Super Saiyan 3 because that would be confusing, it's just worth noting that they would probably end up saying that as the name. To keep things simple, I'll just call it Super Saiyan 4. Cut them some slack, they don't know what Super Saiyan 3 is. And while I'm bringing up Trunks, it's worth mentioning. Remember, this is not the same Trunks. He's the son of Bulma and Raditz. Most likely he'd look a little different too, but we'll probably see more changes in his physical appearance when he's older. As of now, I'll use his regular design as a stand-in. Anywho, Gohan ends up going to school, and everyone notices his tail. He tries to hide it at first, but it's not really something you can hide too well. Some people are weirded out by it, and some people think it's awesome. But then people realize it's not too weird. They live in a world with anthropomorphic animals. This isn't crazy at all. He eventually doesn't want to become the Great Saiyan Man, but instead of a disguise, he has a better idea. That Super Saiyan form that he just learned. It completely alters his appearance, he's unrecognizable. Plus, it has magic clothes. That's a plus. All he needs to do is transform into this, and he'll be fine. Well, maybe he needs some sunglasses. But regardless, the Great Saiyan Man looks like this, and not like the original design. Although the thing is, Vidal's able to put 2 and 2 together. The Great Saiyan Man has a tail, Gohan has a tail, they both showed up around the same time, in the same area, you know, it's surprising that other people haven't noticed. As of now, people just think the Saiyan Man is some weird mythical creature that protects the city, but Vidal realizes it's just Gohan in disguise. A really, really weird disguise. She ends up confronting him about it, and after a while, Gohan can't avoid her. She wants to know 2 things, what's up with the disguise, and why is he so strong? Well, he tells her it's not a disguise, and he transforms right in front of her. This just confuses her. How can he do this? Gohan nonchalantly says that he's half alien. His father and his uncle are from space. What? He said it so casually too, she doesn't even know she can believe this. At first she's a little weirded out, but then she thinks it's cool and kinda cute, but still weird. Trying to learn Ki, she ends up training with him and Goten. And of course she's successful, and one day at dinner, she says he should go to the tournament. Goku and Chichi are excited to hear this too, and they say they want to join. It's a shock for her to learn that fighting runs in the family. They've seen their fair share at tournaments. Goten will even join too in the junior division. And then Videl realizes, oh crap, her dad's not going to win this. Kakarot ends up telling Raditz, and Raditz is glad to hear about it. The 2 brothers may as well relive old times. So you know what? He's going to join too, and he's going to ask his friends about it. Ten Shinhan, Krillin, Yamcha, even Chaozu. They all end up joining. And you know what? Because he has been training a bit, and because he wants to see his students in action, Roshi joins once more as Jackie Chun, although they see through the disguise this time. Why is he wearing that? Well, honestly, he just kinda likes it. No particular reason. And there's 2 other weird contestants, registered under fake names. If they registered under their real names, they'd be recognized. And they're in hoods right now, trying to conceal their identity. They are kinda suspicious, alongside 2 other contestants, one with a mohawk and one with a mullet. Both not looking human at all. Raditz ends up facing one of the hooded men, and he's intrigued. It's the larger man, and not only is this guy strong, but he can somewhat recognize his power. Raditz just can't put his finger on it yet. Although there's one thing that alerts him, it does feel very malicious. The 2 begin fighting, pacing themselves, and then Raditz is able to catch a glimpse of his face. He sees a mustache and a bald head, with some weird tattoo on this guy's forehead. At first he didn't realize because the mustache was blonde, but then he remembers. This is Nappa! He says the name out loud, and Majin Nappa throws off his cloak, revealing that not only is he Majin, but he's in Super Saiyan. Immediately Raditz is on alert, as he jumps into Super Saiyan himself. His power spikes, and suddenly he's attacked from behind, stabbed by something. It's the other hooded man that jumped in. Kakarot is angered, about to intervene. But those other 2 mysterious people stop him, telling him to wait. The man stabbing Raditz throws off his cloak, revealing another familiar villain, Vegeta, also a Majin. Vegeta drains Raditz's energy, and Kakarot won't hold back anymore, and tries to jump in to intervene. Not so fast. Nappa turns to them and lifts his fingers. As a distraction and a way to keep everyone away, he blows up part of the arena with a gigantic storm, killing many. Luckily, Kakarot and group are partially able to shield against the blast and help some people survive. As Raditz falls unconscious, he weakly calls out for Bulma and Trunks, hoping that they're okay. Kakarot, Chichi, and Gohan prepare to face off against Vegeta once again, as all their friends join too. But Vegeta waves goodbye, as he and Nappa vanish. Kakarot senses their ki from far away, but needs to help Raditz first. Shin and Kibito intervene to help as well, introducing themselves, as Kibito heals Raditz. Raditz wakes up, greeted by Kibito, Trunks, and Bulma. He's glad to see they're okay, but he's angered. Not only because Vegeta and Nappa attack, but because Nappa almost killed his friends and family. Raditz immediately rockets off, with Kakarot following close behind, understanding what his brother is doing. Gohan, Ten Shinhan, and Piccolo follow, as Yamcha, Krillin, Chaozu, and Roshi stay back with the others. They want to help everyone evacuate and make sure they're okay, and they'll join if they're needed. Alright, you probably have some questions, so let's rewind a bit, a couple years back. If you remember, the last part ended with this teaser. Babidi found these two containers, and he knew exactly what he was going to do. He opened them up, and Vegeta and Nappa came out, confused and angered. Babidi tried to converse with them, bargaining while reading their mind, but Vegeta and Nappa don't want to hear it. Until suddenly, Babidi infiltrates their mind. He offers them power, and tries to take control while they're in a vulnerable state. And with how confused they are now, and how much they want revenge, they are easily possessed by Babidi, going along with his plan hoping for some more power. Deborah's glad to have some new partners, and Babidi is too. This should make energy collection easy, but they're gonna have to wait to strike still. Also, these two are still too weak. Not a problem though, Deborah volunteers to train them. He's more than strong enough to help. Over the next few years, Deborah trains these two up. And late into their training, they discover something that Vegeta says. When they come back from near-death injuries, they can grow much stronger. Deborah wants to test this out, and shoots a beam through both their chests. They think he's crazy, but then, Babidi goes over and heals them. They're much stronger, although that was pretty painful. Occasionally, just so they're not too stressed out, Deborah's gonna do this, allowing them to grow stronger over time, and with their pure emotions of hatred and rage. Mainly geared towards Raditz and Kakarot, they're eventually able to unlock something amazing, Super Saiyan. And with all their boosts in power, plus their Majin boost, even with how weak they were before, they would be able to catch up. They're Saiyans after all. I'd say while the two are in Super Saiyan, they surpass Super Saiyan Kakarot and Raditz in terms of power, close to them in Super Saiyan 2. However, they're not on the level of the Super Saiyan 4s. But regardless, they're set on killing Kakarot and Raditz, but they must enter the Babidi first. Our group of heroes eventually catches up to the Majin crew. I am just now realizing that rhymes with Majin Buu. That was unintentional. Jokes aside, Shin tries to stop everyone, telling them they'll just give more energy to Babidi. Raditz is furious though. Vegeta put his wife and son in danger, as well as his friends. And Kakarot is equally furious for the same reasons, and because they injured his brother. Goten or some of Kakarot's friends could have gotten killed as well. He does not take this lightly. Knowing Chichi, she'd probably be pretty pissed off too. You know, with her anger, imagine how strong she'd be as a Saiyan. But she stays back with the rest of the group, as Kakarot and Raditz say they'll handle it, and Gohan could join in if he's needed. For the Saiyan twins, Raditz has the edge in terms of power. But Kakarot can hold Super Saiyan 4 for longer, so although he isn't as strong as his brother, he could fight for much longer in his strongest form. Babidi, Deborah, and Pui Pui watch in delight. The Saiyan twins coax Vegeta and Nappa into a fight. Of course, Vegeta and Nappa obliged, ready to kill the two. They're about to turn Super Saiyan 4, but then Shin yells out at them, "Don't give off too much energy." He's right, they could finish this fight quickly by going Super Saiyan 4, but they'll risk giving Babidi too much energy. And it's hard because Vegeta and Nappa are surprisingly strong. They come to find this out quickly. Their best option right now is Super Saiyan 2, although it gets even worse because Deborah joins in to help. He's not going to let them get off so easily. Kakarot and Raditz converse during the fight. They should have just killed these two before. They regret not doing it, especially while they were contained they could have done this. It somehow slipped their minds and they forgot these two even existed. But Kakarot retorts to Raditz, why not just kill them now? Raditz turns to his brother. How does Kakarot suppose they can do that? A team attack. Ah, it's been so long since they fought together like this. A combo attack may be useful. Instead of trying to fight everyone, the two just set their sights on Nappa first. And combined, they deliver a powerful blast, which leaves Nappa gravely injured. Not dead, but dying. That worked out now, but it's not going to work twice. Vegeta and Deborah are on guard. Vegeta doesn't even care about Nappa, and continues fighting with Deborah, but instead of a key attack this time, the two are able to strike Vegeta together, knocking him unconscious. That was good. They'll kill those two later. Now, they face Deborah, and Deborah goes all out. And with no one else to intervene, they're able to kill Deborah, as the area now becomes calm. Shin and Kibito are amazed. Alright, they actually did it! But then their hearts drop. Raditz turns to Shin. What's wrong? Why does he look so terrified? Gohan, Chichi, Ten Shinhan, and Piccolo all sense it next. With Kakarot and Raditz slowly coming to the realization, they did stop those Majin servants, but they're slightly too late.
they sense nearby. A terribly malicious key flares up. Maniacally, Babidi laughs. Yes! This is it! Who cares about Deborah or those two Saiyans? When Vegeta took Raditz's energy, he got a good amount from that. And he wasn't sure where it would work, but this fight was just enough. Just over the right amount of energy he needed to tip him over the edge. Steam emerges from Boo's egg, followed by Boo himself emerging. Babidi's ship explodes. As Boo jumps out of the crater, followed by Babidi floating behind him with a barrier around him. He introduces everyone, the ultimate life form of evil, Majin Buu. Shin tells everyone to back up, but Kakarot, Raditz, and Gohan want to fight. They actually jump into Super Saiyan 4 now, no longer needing to hold back. Although, they do have to make it quick. They still don't have enough control over this form yet, and it's not something they can maintain forever like Super Saiyan. As Boo prepares to fight the twins, Babidi eyes something nearby. His Saiyan servants, one unconscious and one badly injured. Interesting. Kakarot, Raditz, and Gohan are able to fight Boo. And in terms of power, they're all a great match against him, but they're not too overpowered since they have some restraint in this form, otherwise they might instantly drop out of it and lose it. As I mentioned, Kakarot does have the most practice, but Gohan and Raditz are still somewhat amateurs with this form. They decide it's worth the risk and go full power right away. They end up actually killing Boo, or so they think. He regenerates, laughing about it. That kind of tickled. They're low on energy, and again, they try to blow up Boo, but he comes back once more. They keep trying and trying, but Boo gets angrier and angrier, and suddenly, Gohan and Raditz drop out of Super Saiyan 4, with Kakarot being in the form still. He tells them to stand back, ready to defend them. But something's different this time. Boo's not laughing about it. He's angry, fuming, literally fuming. He has steam coming out of him. These three aren't having fun with him. They're trying to kill him. Why? Why do they want to kill Majin Buu? Furiously, he screams. The whole area shakes. As suddenly, something emerges from Boo. A skinny, gray version of Boo. And the group watches confused as the two begin fighting. It's weird, but it's good, because now, Boo's fighting someone else. Maybe they'll kill each other. Of course, it's not going to be that simple. Because unexpectedly, evil Boo turns good Boo into candy, eating him and then slowly morphing. And now, they realize they're really screwed. Gohan and Raditz try to jump back into Super Saiyan 4, but they still need to recover. As Kakarot even drops out of it himself. Sacrificing some of his energy, Gohan creates an artificial moon, replacing the one that recently vanished. They'll transform again, but with all the power they've used, they'll have to make it even quicker this time. Boo is entertained by this, and decides to fight them. This is the perfect opportunity for him. The rest of the group even joins in trying to help fight, but they can't do anything, even with the Super Saiyan 4s there. But Boo plays along. He has a new trick. Babidi communicated something to him. Nearby, there's those two Saiyans. And Boo separates a piece from himself, which crawls over to Vegeta and Nappa. Out of the blue, during the fight, the group sees two giant pink blobs fly towards Boo, with him laughing as he absorbs them. This fight is escalating really quickly, and once again, the Saiyans drop out of Super Saiyan 4, as they all watch Boo transform once more, and Kakarot stops, paralyzed in fear. The group looks over and sees. In front of him, with his hand stretched out, stands Majin Buu, looking much different, and wearing clothes similar to Vegeta. He grins as he charges an energy blast in his palm. Laughing maniacally, he unleashes a blast towards Kakarot, with the group watching in fear.
So what does Boo exactly want right now? He's shown his superiority. Now that he has Vegeta and Nappa absorbed in him, he's more than strong enough to show this. It seems like the group stands no chance against him, and he's pretty bored. He knows they won't put up a good fight. No longer will they toy with him. This is where the fight ends. With his hand stretched in front of Kakarot's face, he begins charging the beam. Although, he will show some mercy. He asks Kakarot if he has any last words. Kakarot weakly smiles and says the rest is up to Raditz, Gohan, and everyone else with them. He then quickly jumps into Super Saiyan 4 once more, as Boo laughs, making his beam larger. What, a sign of rebellion? What does this idiot think he's gonna do now? Quickly, Kakarot moves under Boo's arm, then hugging Boo. Raditz and Gohan wonder what he's planning, and then they realize what he's doing. If Boo's gonna kill him regardless, Kakarot wants to go out on his own terms. He begins glowing, his energy is at the max right now, and even Boo is confused. As Kakarot glows more and more, he then reaches his peak, channeling all of his energy into a controlled explosion, aimed right at Boo. Slowly, Boo begins disintegrating, as Kakarot grows brighter and brighter, telling everyone to stand back and saying goodbye. And then, the full blast appears. In an instant, the area is coated in ki. It's almost as if the entire planet is shaking from this explosion. The entire area is leveled, all the clouds above part revealing a clear sky. Kakarot explodes, self-destructing in an effort to kill Boo, or to at least hold him off. The explosion creeps closer as Shin then teleports everyone away,
with Gohan and Raditz wanting to stay. Thankfully, Shin was quick enough to get everyone out of there, and they're now all in the sacred world of Kai's. So let's do a quick head count right now. Present at the fight is Chichi, Ten Shinhan, Krillin, and Piccolo, alongside the obvious Raditz and Gohan. Everyone there is just confused, until the realization slowly sets in. Did what they think just happened actually just happen? Shin looks in his crystal ball and realizes it appears so. Kakarot sacrificed himself, either in an effort to kill Buu or to save everyone. If it actually killed Buu, well, that remains to be seen. But in terms of saving everyone, it seems he did his job. Of course, Chichi loses it, with everyone else in a state of shock. Gohan and Raditz feel the worst as well. After all the stuff they've been through, this is how he dies? The worst part about it seems like Buu didn't even die. He seemingly vanished, but Shin can tell that Kakarot didn't kill him. It dealt severe damage to the Majin, but he eventually regenerates, although he has lost a considerable amount of energy. He's clearly been weakened a bit. But there's a silver lining. Buu assumes that Kakarot was an idiot and killed everyone else in the explosion. He doesn't sense anyone else, or even knows where they could have gone, so Buu assumes everyone is dead. That's actually kinda boring for him. Was it that easy to prove his dominance? I mean, he did show it, but was it really that easy? You know what? He feels a bit underwhelmed. Well, before he completely destroys Earth, he may as well have some fun and enjoy its food. Buu goes around terrorizing cities, looting any stores for food, and then turning entire populations into candy. Once he eats everyone and everything, then the Earth itself will be destroyed. Meanwhile, on the world of Kai's, Raditz worries about Bulma and Trunks, and also has to comfort Chichi, who is also trying to train because she thinks that she can kill Buu herself. Her original sadness is gone, and now she's angry. But of course, she's not really going to be able to do much. But after this time has passed, there is some hope. Shin has the idea of getting someone to use the Z-Sword, so Raditz goes for it, being one of the strongest in the group. Shin wanted Gohan to do it because he seemed like the strongest here, but Raditz is angry and is set on killing Buu. He wants to defend his family, as well as being the one to avenge his brother. So, in the meantime, Gohan trains with Ten Shinhan, with everyone else training with each other. It seems like a long shot, but they may be able to get stronger and actually face Buu later on. Gohan's actually surprised. In his training with Ten Shinhan, the Kaioken seems to have really paid off. While the Kaioken is still a draining technique, Ten has been able to better regulate it, not only being able to access it at higher levels, but being able to hold it for longer. Ten's training has clearly paid off, and Gohan can tell he lived up to his role as a rival for his father and his uncle. And speaking of his uncle, Raditz tries going Super Saiyan 4 while pulling out the Z-Sword, and he pulls it out, but just the hilt. It seems he broke the sword before he even got it out of the stone. Was that supposed to happen? Well, even though he doesn't get to train with the Z-Sword, thankfully, this means that Elder Kai is freed. Once they all learn who he is and what happened with him, Elder Kai is of course going to offer some help. Seeing as Raditz was the one to break the Z-Sword, it seems fitting that he will be the one to get the ultimate form. Elder Kai assumes if Raditz is strong enough to do that, well, he's worthy of the form and he'd probably benefit the most from it, besides someone like Gohan. Although, it is going to take a bit of time. Raditz likely has a lot of latent potential here. The thing is with Gohan, he's a hybrid Saiyan, so of course that would mean he has more, as it's been explained in the series multiple times. Raditz would most likely have less, but that's not to say this ritual isn't going to be beneficial for him. No, it's going to be very beneficial in terms of boosting his power. He'd see a huge increase in strength, and the ritual would actually be shorter for him. Unlike Gohan, it would probably only take a day for Raditz to complete his ritual. And while that kinda seems like cutting it close, they decide to go with it. At the rate Buu's destroying Earth, they may still have some time, so they might as well let the ritual go on. Of course, Buu's a little bored right now. So on Earth, while he is destroying stuff and turning it into candy, he is going to take his sweet time, no pun intended. I mean, maybe if he's lucky he'll find someone else strong to fight, because otherwise it seems like his job is done here. A day or so passes, and it seems Buu was right, because he eventually comes across another strong fighter. He suddenly senses a new power arrive on Earth, and it's oddly familiar. It seems like someone he fought before. Behind him, he hears footsteps. He turns around and he sees Raditz is standing there, in his base form. Buu's confused. He thought Raditz died when Kakarot killed himself. Not quite. Not only is Raditz alive, but he's much stronger than normal. He powers up ready to face Buu. In his new ultimate form, he will avenge Kakarot. Buu thinks he's bluffing, until he's hit by a punch from Raditz. The punch sends him flying, and just as soon as he gets up, he's hit again by Raditz. Raditz is enraged, and he's set on killing Buu. Angered, Buu tries to counter with a powerful Gallic gun, but Raditz then launches his own beam, countering with a Kamehameha. The two temporarily go into a beam struggle, with Raditz then coming out on top. This attack did a good amount of damage, and it seems now Raditz is finally ready to finish him off. Just as he wanted, he He'll avenge Kakarot and kill Boo right here, right now. Although, this is where he makes a mistake. His anger blinds him, and in the heat of the battle, he didn't notice. Behind him, a piece of Boo regenerates into another copy of Boo. While Raditz aims a blast at the seemingly defenseless Boo, he's attacked from behind, then grabbed by Boo as he takes a page out of Kakarot's book, performing an attack that he took from Vegeta, a final explosion. This explosion is powerful. Raditz ends up surviving, but he's still severely injured. But it's too late. Just as he gets up, Boo arrives, and decides he doesn't want this power to go to waste. He could kill Raditz right here, but that wouldn't be fun. Raditz stands up, but then his leg is caught on something, and he sees pink slime wrapped around his foot. Slowly the sludge expands, crawling up Raditz and absorbing him, as it's then accumulated into Boo. Everyone on the World of Kais is shocked. They watch what happens and they see Boo has now absorbed Raditz. So not only did Raditz not defeat him, but Boo grew stronger. I guess a fitting new name for him would be Booditz. Nah, I'm not gonna call him that sounds really weird. Let's just stick with Boo for now. I'm gonna keep that in, that was kind of funny. Jokes aside, there does seem to be one more option. One that they were already told about, but one that they hoped that they didn't have to resort to. So Ten Shinhan actually had a great idea. During his training, he learned a technique called the fusion dance. Maybe, if he and Gohan were to fuse, this would work. However, there are a few issues. One, his power's kind of in an odd spot. He's way stronger than all the humans, but in terms of the Saiyans, he's a little bit weaker, so this would hold the fusion back in terms of its potential power. And also, Gohan would have to learn the fusion dance. If they fail, well, they don't really have the time to recover. They need to get to Earth right away. But bringing this up was a great idea, because Elder Kai has another suggestion. That being the Patara earrings. Ten's a little schmiz that he can't use the fusion dance yet, but at least he knows it for later. Something called the Patara earrings is something that the Kais wear, and using these accessories, two fighters can fuse into one. There is kind of a downside though. It seems that the fusion may be permanent, as it is with him. And that's the reason why they didn't want to resort to this. But it seems there's no other way. Thankfully, they still have two really strong fighters here, that being Gohan and Ten Shinhan. It's an unlikely duo, but the two of them are up for the task. Although they're hesitant at first, they ultimately decide to fuse. Elder Kai hands them the earrings, asking if they're entirely sure about this. Of course, it's a tough decision, but they decide to go with it. If they don't do this, how else would they save Earth? Everyone else on the planet watches as both of them put their earrings on. Gohan and Ten Shinhan then collide, as they form into one person. After a bright flash of light, a new fighter is revealed. This new fusion is absolutely speechless. He looks down at his hands, and then looking in a nearby lake to see what he looks like. The power that he has now is unfathomable. The fusion of Ten Shinhan and Gohan. He calls himself Ten Shinhan. Wait, he calls himself Gohan. Wait, he calls himself Goten. Wait, no, that doesn't work either. Naming himself is kind of the hardest part of this. Okay, none of those names are gonna work, so why not Tenhan or Tienhan? Whatever, that's not important right now. He rolls with it. Tenhan is fully healed as he's then brought to Earth. Chichi watches on, hoping that they can win, and also hoping that this isn't permanent, because Gohan is now half bald and has 3 eyes. No offense to Ten Shinhan, but that's not really a good look for Gohan. Shin wishes the fusion luck, as he then rockets off to fight Boo. Boo's surprised, another fighter is here. While confident, Tenhan isn't too overly cocky. The power of Boo combined with that of Raditz, well, it's definitely something to be feared. But thankfully, Tenhan might be able to do the job. In base, he's slightly disadvantaged, because Boo is so strong now. Boo's confident. Even though these two fuse together, their combined powers still aren't enough to fight him. Thankfully, this isn't his full power, not even a fraction of it. Tenhan then powers up, going into Super Saiyan. This levels the playing field, but it may not be enough to kill Boo due to his regeneration. He continues fighting, able to outpace the Majin. Boo is angered. No matter what he do, he can't damage this new fighter. He tries all of his attacks, using techniques from Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz even. But nothing works. He even turns Tenhan into candy, but somehow, the candy is still able to fight back. And actually, turning him into candy gives him an advantage. So, he turns him back to normal. How is this fusion so strong? Tenhan is not going to play around though, and he tries to think of a good way to defeat Boo. He would try and use Super Saiyan 4, but given the fact that Gohan can't even hold it for a long time, it may not be reliable, especially because the Ten Shinhan half of the fusion doesn't even have access to it at all. So, going into Super Saiyan 4 might be unstable and draining. However, he has mastered Super Saiyan and a level above that, powering up further into Super Saiyan 2. And on top of that, he has another technique that he has a mastery over, Kaioken. This may not work at the moment, but it seems more reliable than Super Saiyan 4, so they test it out, going into Super Saiyan 2 stacked with Kaioken. This power is just incredible, and he greatly overpowers Boo. But something's holding him back from killing the Majin. Raditz is still inside of him, and they don't really want to kill Raditz if there's a way to get him out. In Super Saiyan 2 Kaioken, he's able to hold off the Majin while he thinks of a plan, and then he gets a great idea. Something that may be able to save Raditz, but they're not entirely sure if it'll work. But whatever, they could always revive Raditz alongside Kakarot. With Buu now all beaten up, he then looks surprised as Tenhan then goes back into his base form. He has a technique that'll destroy every single bit of Buu. One of Ten Shinhan's techniques. He lifts his hands up in the air and then calls for everyone to lend him energy. On the world of Kais, everyone else helps. Chichi, Piccolo, and Krillin lift their hands up, with the Kais following. Thankfully, some of the other fighters on Earth survive too. Yamcha, Goten, Trunks, all the other fighters lend their energy as well. Roshi, Mr. Satan, Videl. The bomb grows bigger and bigger. Almost too big. If he launches it now, the Earth may be destroyed. This isn't like the world of Kais, which is very durable. And for this reason, Buu calls his bluff. And he's right. The fusion needs to be careful. He can't launch it right at Buu right now because otherwise the Earth will blow up. And Buu then rushes towards the fusion. Instinctively, to fight back, Tenhan then jumps into Super Saiyan 2. But when this happens, the Spirit Bomb starts shrinking. All of the energy from the Spirit Bomb is being channeled into Tenhan. He's confused, he doesn't even know what's going on either. Buu doesn't care. He punches him, but as he does, his fist just disintegrates. He can't even regenerate it. Tenhan has an odd glow around him. All the power of the Spirit Bomb has been channeled within his body. Buu keeps trying to attack, but every time he does, he just takes damage. The fusion realizes that this is gonna work. He focuses all his energy into one attack, then hitting Buu right in the chest with one massive punch. A bright blue and white explosion occurs. As Buu screams in agony, he slowly starts disintegrating, due to the power of the punch as well as the power of the Spirit Bomb within it. Desperately, Buu launches one last blast, but the fusion completely disregards it, with the beam doing absolutely no damage. Buu screams as he finally fades out of existence, now dead. Tenhan catches his breath, powering back down into base. But just as he does, he then defuses. What was that about? They thought the fusion was permanent, but maybe it wasn't. It must have had something to do with the Spirit Bomb. But now with Buu defeated, everything can be restored. From Namek, everyone on Earth gets revived, including Raditz alongside Kakarot, although they do exclude the evil people from the Wish. It's a shame that Vegeta and Nappa got caught up in this. Raditz and Kakarot aren't too keen on reviving them, but it gets them thinking. The prospect of more Saiyans definitely is interesting. They'll sit on this idea. Everyone else is just confused. They can't seriously be considering reviving those two Saiyans. Well, maybe not. It's clear those two are being controlled, and maybe their evil deeds can be rectified. The twins laugh as everyone else looks speechless. Well, with Buu's defeat, this calls for a celebration. 3 cheers to Gohan and Ten Shinhan. They saved the day. Well, Elder Kai deserves some credit too. This wouldn't have happened without him. He's the real hero here. Also, Ten Shinhan remembers earlier. One of the reasons he couldn't fuse was because his power was in a weird spot. He's very strong, but he still needs to get stronger, and there seems to be the perfect technique waiting right there for him. Just like one of his rivals, Raditz, he's going to pursue getting the ultimate form. As soon as he returns to King Kai, he has to be taken to Elder Kai. And, given how great of a student he is, King Kai accepts this. So over the next few years, not too much is going to happen. Everyone would continue their training in the same way that they were before. With the Saiyans getting more of a grasp on Super Saiyan 4, this really helps Gohan, mainly with him being the Saiyaman. Not only is Super Saiyan 4 the perfect disguise, but he's able to hold it for a lot longer now. Of course, this has other implications as well. It's great for him, Raditz, and Kakarot. They mostly train using this and are able to hold it for a lot longer than they did before, also getting way stronger in the process. But they begin to wonder, is this their ceiling? Is this all they can achieve? They wonder if there's anything above this that they can somehow obtain, but they're not really too sure about how to do it. Especially with Raditz, he actually prioritizes Super Saiyan 4 over Ultimate. He didn't really take Elder Kai's words into account. He put too much emphasis on transforming, when really, Ultimate's the better form for him. I made a whole video about this explaining why Ultimate is so good, and it applies here too. It's not a draining form and it draws out all its potential, so if he grows stronger as a Super Saiyan 4, that inherently boosts Ultimate too. It's a shameless plug, but you can check out the video linked above, since it would take kinda long to explain here when I already explained it there too. Point being, he doesn't even realize that he already has a better form within him, but maybe down the line, he'll come to his senses. And as for Kakarot and Gohan, yeah, Super Saiyan 4 is their limit for now. Gohan's growing surprisingly strong due to his hybrid potential. They never really expected that to happen, but they're surprised and happy nonetheless. The 3 of them keep training, with Ten joining in wanting to keep up with his rivals. Of course, Super Saiyan 4 is way above where he is now, but still, working with King Kai really helps him grow strong. Speaking of King Kai, Ten Shinhan is on the planet one day continuing to train. And then suddenly, a weird visitor shows up. Not long beforehand, Beerus finally awakened from his sleep. And of course he's going to try and find a Saiyan, because he has some dream about some sort of Super Saiyan legend. And he realized it was the Super Saiyan God. Apparently King Kai might know some Saiyans, so he's going to stop there first. He's intrigued by this Earthling that's on his planet. Despite Beerus being a giant purple cat, he still feels it's weird that the guy in front of him has 3 eyes and massive shoulders. But that's not important right now. He wants help finding the Saiyans. Of course, Ten knows exactly who he's talking about. And while King Kai is kind of wary about it, Ten says he'll find out sooner or later anyways. He tells Beerus that there's a few Saiyans on Earth, and they're pretty strong. They've been able to awaken some weird power within them. Actually, multiple times. Of course, they don't call it Super Saiyan 4, but they have Super Saiyan 4. And Ten tells Beerus about this. Interesting, some evolution of Super Saiyan. Definitely sounds like some sort of Super Saiyan god. Or at least, Beerus hopes. He's gonna check it out though. This leads Beerus to Earth, and it's where the real fun will begin. So, what is there to cover here? Well, not too much really. I apologize, but we're gonna kinda be glossing over this one because not much would really change. Really, Beerus comes to Earth, looks for a Super Saiyan god, and they try to figure out a way to do the ritual. It comes down to a game of rock, paper, scissors between Kakarot and Raditz, deciding who deserves the form more. Kakarot wins, and you know what? It's kinda fair. Raditz already did get his own form, so why not Kakarot now? The ritual's done, and Super Saiyan God Kakarot is born, leading to the fight with Beerus, which goes pretty much the same as it did in the canon story. So, while Battle of Gods went relatively normally, it's the stuff that follows that will change a lot. On Beerus' planet, Kakarot and Raditz would eventually be there training, while Gohan and everyone else are stuck on Earth. Raditz isn't just gonna sit by and let Kakarot have this form all to himself. No, he wants to get it too. But once the two have Super Saiyan God, what's next for them? I mean, they're happy with Super Saiyan God right now, but they know that there's some way to get above this power. And the two each have their own methods of going about this. Kakarot wants a more controlled approach. Since the two of them have perfect mastery over regular Super Saiyan, he wants to see if there's some way to use that power to combine it with Super Saiyan God, going above it that way. But Raditz is taking a more risky approach. He's pretty much jumping ahead by a lot. Instead of just combining Super Saiyan with Super Saiyan God, he wonders if Super Saiyan 4 will work with it. They don't have nearly as much control over that form as they do with Super Saiyan, and it'll probably take a lot longer, but if Raditz is able to accomplish this, the payoff will be great. That is, if he can control the power. The two continue their training there, while on Earth, everyone else has their own forms of training, specifically Gohan, who isn't doing the same godly stuff that they're doing. He is still training, but he's not going as hard as they are. He has a family, a job, and responsibilities now, so he's not going to be training 24/7, although his hybrid strength lets him keep up with them. Probably not with Super Saiyan God, but at least somewhat close to that. He does stick with normal Super Saiyan 4 for his training because it's still very strong. Most of his time training is spent with Piccolo and Ten Shinhan, and Ten teaches him something very interesting. Sure, Gohan's not going to be pursuing any new forms, but there's a new technique that he can learn from Ten. Ten spent a lot of time with King Kai, and is now able to teach Kaioken to other people. And sadly, not many people on Earth are motivated to actually learn it, or even strong enough to handle it. But there is one person, and that is Gohan. It takes some time, but eventually, Gohan's able to access Kaioken. And Ten wonders why he's doing this. Isn't Super Saiyan 4 stronger? Well yeah, Super Saiyan 4 is way better than Kaioken, but that's not the point. The point is, Gohan wants to see if he can combine them somehow. I mean, it would be stressful, but it's not impossible. If he gets good enough with Kaioken, as well as getting good enough with Super Saiyan 4, maybe he can combine the two and get a lot stronger that way. Ten's pretty intrigued by this. He's bummed that his rivals are gone, but it's whatever. He found a new unlikely rival with Gohan. After fusing in the Buu Saga, he realized how strong this guy is. He was so focused on Raditz and Kakarot that he didn't even notice Gohan's true power. I mean, the two already get along very well, and they're both strong in their own right. And there is one more thing that they practice. Ten didn't really get to use it in the Buu Saga because Potara was more available, but now that they actually have time, Ten wants to practice fusion with Gohan. Sure, the Potara is definitely a lot more convenient, but in case they don't have access to Potara, fusion may be necessary, at least if some big threat ever comes their way. And even better, if Gohan learns it, he could teach it to other people. So even if the two of them don't necessarily fuse together, it'll still be a useful thing for him to know. For now, it's kind of an extended period of peace. One interesting tidbit is that Grandpa Gohan and Roshi train Goten here. They definitely see his potential and try and get him more accustomed to ki and fighting. He does have a surprisingly high power and already has Super Saiyan. And yeah, he's way above them in terms of strength, but in terms of technique, he's definitely got a long way to go. At this point, Grandpa Gohan will get the same quote-unquote immortality that Roshi has, you know, the kind where he can't die from old age, since Roshi could easily share the plant that grants this to him. It's weird too because Grandpa Gohan and Roshi have grown a bit as well. They're not nearly as active as everyone else, but they're still training occasionally. Chichi even joins them too. If you guys remember from a while ago, Chichi is still a fighter here. And while Kakarot is way more dedicated than her, she does try and keep up a bit, occasionally training so she can make herself stronger. and this is why she's more open to let Goten train. She's trained him a bit, but Roshi and Gohan are definitely more knowledgeable. Things pretty much continue like this, there is no Resurrection F, and this eventually leads us into the Universe 6 tournament. As for the team, it goes as follows. There's Kakarot, Raditz, Gohan, Ten Shinhan, and Piccolo. This probably won't be too much of a challenge for them, it'll more so be a show of strength for them. Kakarot first sweeps Potamo, Frost, and Vegeta. This isn't Goku, his personality is much more different and blunt, so even though he sweeps Potamo like normal, Frost is going to be different. He's not going to play around, he realizes the stakes here and wants to be serious, even though he does want a good fight. He wouldn't even realize Frost's other forms, so he just fights him as is, defeating him. And as for Vegeta, Kakarot is able to come up with some insults. This leads to him fighting Kaba, who does interest him, a Saiyan from another universe, and he seems kinda different from normal Saiyans. Since he takes an interest in Kaba, he decides to teach him Super Saiyan, showing him the ropes and seeing if he can figure out how to do it himself. Maybe if they meet again one day, or if they go to Universe 6 and visit Sadala, he can help Kaba and anyone else there get a lot stronger. This eventually leads to a fight with Hit, and here's where Kakarot shows everyone else his true power. After all his time training, he finally shows off Super Saiyan Blue. This was his way of pursuing power. Raditz didn't go this route because he found another more efficient way, and the two know each other's forms. For Super Saiyan Blue, it's really strong and Kakarot has great control over it. And people are impressed to see the power, although it still doesn't match up to Hit yet. So, sadly on its first debut, Goku loses while showing off Super Saiyan Blue. Okay, that's fine, they still have 4 other fighters left, but this Hit guy definitely is concerning. Thankfully the next person up is also pretty strong as well, and it's a Raditz. While it took a lot longer, he was able to find a way to combine Super Saiyan 4 with God Ki, focusing on making that form stronger and more reliable, while also trying to infuse God Ki within it. He turned into a Super Saiyan 4, and it still isn't enough to face Hit, as expected though, so he powers up once more. Raditz is surrounded by an odd aura, the same purplish reddish aura that he had with Super Saiyan God, and his hair slightly begins to change. His fur almost has sort of a glow to it, and his hair gets a reddish tint. It's a relatively calm transformation that isn't very showy, but the result of it is definitely interesting. Hit's confused, but Raditz introduces this. Of course, they wouldn't be referring to it by this name, but it is Super Saiyan 4 Limit Breaker. I finally found a way to include this form in one of my videos. Awesome! And of course, this form definitely isn't something to be underestimated. Actually, at this point, Raditz is beyond Kakarot in terms of power. It did take longer, and this form still is somewhat hard to control, but in terms of power, this definitely does surpass Super Saiyan Blue. Hit is amazed to see Raditz's speed, not to mention the power behind his attacks. Even with time skip, Hit can't keep up. He hasn't improved nearly enough to even contend with Raditz at this rate. Raditz is able to take the win here, meaning that Universe 7 wins the tournament. Ten, Gohan, and Piccolo are kinda bummed. They got all hyped up for this tournament and they didn't even get to fight. It was kinda cool to watch Kakarot and Raditz show off their new forms, but come on, Kakarot got to take out 4 of the people. But hey, whatever. This is somewhat of a learning experience for them, seeing the different people of Universe 6 and seeing Kakarot and Raditz's new powers. This does lead to some issues later though. Next we see Zamasu, but this arc is going to be very different. He's not going to be attacking the future timeline. Instead this one. The main reason being that Goku Black would fail in the other timeline, and you'll see why here. Zamasu was watching the fights on GodTube, and decides he does want to steal one of their bodies to help him in his plan. Raditz or Kakarot would be a good choice. And even though Raditz definitely does seem strong, it seems like he doesn't really have a control over God Ki. Not to mention his form is a really disgusting mix of God Ki and regular Ki. But Kakarot on the other hand, he has a purely God form. And even with Super Saiyan in there, it's still more so the power of God Ki that's helping him, at least in Zamasu's eyes. Plus, Kakarot has a much better control over this form than Raditz does with Limit Breaker. And it doesn't really matter whose body he steals anyways, as long as they're strong, it'll help him. He's able to use the Time Ring and get Super Dragon Balls, and his wish is simple, he wants to swap bodies with Kakarot. Although, there's a bit of an issue this time, and this is why the other Goku Black, or I guess Kakarot Black, failed in the other timeline. The wish is made, and on Earth, Raditz is with Kakarot already. For some odd reason, Kakarot suddenly changes. He turns green, not to mention his hair is completely different, but he sounds like Kakarot and he says he is Kakarot, and Raditz just witnessed it in front of his eyes. Suddenly, Kakarot Black then appears in front of them, and he's definitely shocked. Oh, he didn't expect Raditz to be here at this moment. Whatever, with this body, he should be enough to face Raditz alone. Raditz is immediately on guard, jumping into Super Saiyan 4 Limit Breaker. Zamasu in Kakarot's body is a little bit nervous, but he doesn't care. He powers up, and he can't access Super Saiyan Blue, or any form for that matter. Okay, this is where he starts panicking. He keeps trying to power up, but he can't, and at that moment, Raditz then attacks him. Zamasu can't even teleport away right now, he just keeps getting attacked and attacked. He's worried about destroying Kakarot's body, but Kakarot tells him to do it. They can restore it with the Dragon Balls later on. They just need to figure out what the heck happened. Raditz hears his brother loud and clear. He punches Zamasu in the stomach, stunning his brother's imposter. He charges Ki in both his hands, and with a weekend, he kills Zamasu. Okay, now they have to deal with this. They need to figure out how to fix Kakarot, and they know that that guy had something to do with it. They call Beerus and Whis over, and they're speechless. Obviously, they can see that Kakarot is now Zamasu, and they don't know who the hell Zamasu is, but Beerus explains. It seems that Zamasu switched their bodies for some reason, so they're gonna have a little chat with Gowasu, and it turns out Gowasu's not there. Neither are any of the gods. It seems Zamasu killed them or something. They may have inadvertently just stopped a huge attack from Zamasu, one on a much larger scale than that. Well, Whis wouldn't normally get involved, but he tells everyone to hang on. He has a way to fix this. He briefly disappears, and then comes back with Gowasu, with the halo over his head. Gowasu is equally confused, but Whis then taps him with the staff, reviving Gowasu, as well as Rumshi. They all show what happened to Gowasu and explain. He's kinda saddened to hear that his student did this, but he's glad that Universe 7 helped, and glad that they were able to stop this attack, although it is weird to see his student there in different clothes. And he realizes that's the guy who Zamasu swapped bodies with. Alright, that's all good now, and all they have to do is fix Kakarot's body. And there's a really simple way to do that. They go to Namek, and the Namekians are kinda weirded out to see this, but they explain. They know Raddus, but they actually didn't get to meet Kakarot yet. And this is definitely a weird introduction, but they kinda understand. Or they pretend to understand. This is definitely beyond their understanding. Kai's from another universe came here and stole his body? Weird, but whatever. They're glad to help. They get the Dragon Balls there, and ask for Kakarot's body to be restored. So, Kakarot's back to his normal self. All is good. But he notices an issue. He powers up and he can only go into Super Saiyan 4. His god forms aren't working. He tries and tries, but he can't access God or Blue for some reason, and this is kinda concerning. Okay, well, no big deal. Maybe they just have to give him the God ritual again. It makes sense because he did have a weird incident with his body. Maybe it's the same reason that Zamasu couldn't use the forms. So, back on Earth, they gather everyone together. And this time Pan's in the ritual instead of Videl, which makes it all the more weird. Everyone powers up, giving Kakarot their energy once more. They let out a sigh of relief as he's back to normal, now able to use Super Saiyan God. But does he have access to Blue still? Well, they won't know unless they test it. So, Kakarot tells everyone to stand back. He's not sure if this will work, but it's worth a try. In Super Saiyan God, he begins powering up. He feels the power coming, but it's different this time. It feels weird, he doesn't really know how to explain it. Not to mention, it's definitely way more potent than before. And he's not surrounded by a blue aura as he powers up. It's one that's more pink. Uh-oh, this definitely isn't right. He continues powering up, and the transformation is complete. And everyone just stands there confused as they see. Kakarot now has pink hair. It's weird, this does feel like Super Saiyan Blue kind of, actually a lot stronger than it. But something else feels different, and then Kakarot sees that he does have pink hair. What just happened? Beerus and Whis are kinda amazed too. They actually have no idea what just happened. But I have an explanation for you guys. So obviously this is Super Saiyan Rose, and the reason he got this is because of his weird body experience. Also, I wanted him to have something more unique than blue, and this is a good way to do it. From Zamasu briefly inhabiting his body, that Kai Ki kinda remained in there. And for the same reason Goku Black as Super Saiyan Rose is a more pure version of Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, which is why it's so much more potent as well, besides the obvious difference of the hair. They're all amazed at this new power, and Kakarot isn't really sure what to make of it. Well, looks like he has to test it. It actually gets him kind of excited. It's really strong, and it seems interesting. Raditz and Kakarot immediately leave to go train with it, seeing what it is. So we had some pretty strange events happen in the last part. There kinda was a Goku Black, but not in the way that you'd imagine. Or I guess Kakarot Black for that matter. Of course Zamasu was stopped before he could even do anything, but it still left Kakarot in a weird spot, although it gave him a new power. He did get his original body back, but it seems that some of Zamasu's essence lingered within him, not in a bad way though, no. For some reason, now his hair is pink instead of blue, and Kakarot's way more interested in focusing on this form now. As for Raditz, we saw that he was focusing on Super Saiyan 4, specifically the Limit Broken version. Although in the last part I briefly did mention that Ultimate is more effective for him, and after some time, he begins to realize this. It's less draining, and it draws out all the potential from whatever forms he has. So he'd be foolish not to utilize that to its fullest, even though Super Saiyan 4 Limit Breaker looks pretty cool for him. But that's not the last we're going to see of that form, not in the slightest. We're heading into the Tournament of Power now, and it's time to make a team. Obviously, Kakarot and Raddus are here, with Gohan, Ten Shinhan, Piccolo, Krillin, and Yamcha joining. As we've seen in the scenario, Chichi does still fight from time to time, and they actually ask her to join. It's been a while since she had a serious fight, and she kinda lags behind in terms of power, but she would still love to join. Goten joins too, that makes 9 people. But they still need one more, and they're trying to figure out who they can recruit. Roshi or Grandpa Gohan would be a pretty good choice, but Raditz and Kakarot don't know if they could keep up in terms of power. They know those two have been training, but this is something else. They even have the same concern for Chichi, but at least her age isn't a problem like those two. They try and think who their next fighters can be, but it's no big deal though. They still have a lot of time left. For now, they want to see where everyone stands in terms of power. One of the people that they're most interested in is Gohan. They want to see how he's done here on Earth with his training. As mentioned before, he's been training with Ten Shinhan, and after that fusion they did in the Buu Saga, he kinda wanted to learn Kaioken for himself so he could use it with Super Saiyan 4. He tells Kakarot and Raditz and they want to see if he's able to do it, and he tells them that he simply can't. The reason being is because he found another good power that he could use. You see, even though he wasn't training with Beerus or he didn't get a ritual done on him, he still does have trace amounts of God Ki within him. I mean, consider how much he's been with Kakarot and Raditz. At some point, even trace amounts of God Ki would be infused within him. Over the past year, he's been working to try and access that, because he knew it was within him. He explains this, and they expect him to have Super Saiyan God or something. Well, yeah, he kinda does. But then he shows off what he's truly referring to. He goes into Super Saiyan 4 and begins powering up on top of that. Raditz can immediately tell what he's done. Inspired by Raditz, he decided to pursue Super Saiyan 4 and Limit Breaker. And this is his new peak of power right now. The two Saiyans are amazed to see this. And obviously quite glad that Gohan is this strong now. And just for fun, Kakarot decides to spar with him, using his new Super Saiyan Rose form. The two actually seem somewhat even in terms of power. Rose allowed Kakarot to get some great growth, and the same goes for Gohan's new form, as well as the fact that he is a hybrid Saiyan after all. And besides just the test in power, they enjoy sparring once in a while. As for the rest of the team, they've all seen some great growth as well. Goten's been pretty motivated because Chichi is very supportive of his training. We've seen this ever since the beginning. In the first few parts of the scenario, we saw how motivated Chichi was as a fighter. And while she still is somewhat like she is in canon, she's clearly much more open to fighting here, which benefits everyone in her family in terms of power. The other humans and Piccolo have all done great as well, and the twins are pretty confident about their team, but there is still one spot open. So they decide to ask the team flat out, is there anyone else that they could think of? Surprisingly, the one person that does have a suggestion is Ten. He does have some amazing rivals here on Earth. Of course, his old friends Raditz and Kakarot, and his new rival Gohan. But it's not like he was training on King Kai's planet alone. No, he's met some pretty strong people in Otherworld and did find a rival there. Although it's been a bit of time since Ten saw him. And technically he is dead, so they don't know if he could even join. They ask Beerus and he doesn't care as long as they get another fighter. And they trust Ten's judgment, so he goes back to King Kai for a bit. Not long after, he returns with a new fighter. The person he recruited is Piccolo. And although he doesn't really know anyone on Earth, he agreed to join because he knew the stakes. Ten vouches for him and says he's the strongest person in Otherworld, even stronger than himself. Ten even says if things become bad, he can fuse with Piccolo, but he'd actually rather avoid that because it would be a pretty disgusting looking fusion. Jokes aside though, he'll definitely be a valuable asset to the team, and now they have the 10 people they need, so Team Universe 7 heads off to the Tournament of Power. Right away, they all get to see the strength of the other universes. There are a lot of strong fighters in competition, but luckily, it's nothing that they can't handle. The weakest person on the team here is probably Chichi or Yamcha, but even then, it's not like they're incredibly weak. It's just that everyone else is so strong on the team. The first parts of the tournament aren't necessarily that hard. Everyone is amazed at Picon's power too. They get to see what Ten was talking about. And it's not just his power, but his techniques and abilities are also pretty impressive too. He's clearly very skilled. At one point, Raditz encounters Kaba again, as well as the two other Saiyans with him. It's been a while since he's seen Kaba and he's glad to meet these two other Saiyans. It's not like he cares about the Saiyan race or anything, at least not the one from his universe, but it's just cool to see more people like him. And you know what? For fun, he's gonna challenge them to a fight. Yeah, all three of them at once. Kaba and Caulifla transform, and Kale joins in although she doesn't transform because she knows what's gonna happen when she does. Single-handedly, Raditz fends them off. Kaba's confused. He hasn't transformed at all, but his power is still insane. This can't be his base form, can it? Well, Raditz actually explains. While Super Saiyan or Super Saiyan 2 is great for them, he doesn't really need to use it anymore. He's utilizing Ultimate, drawing out all the power he needs without that flashy transformation. And while he could easily defeat all of them at once, he wants to have some fun. So he spends a bit of time fighting them. Meanwhile, Kakarot faces Universe 2, showing off his newest form. Once he goes Super Saiyan Rose, they actually compliment him. They think his hair is beautiful, as is the aura. And he's actually kind of embarrassed to hear that. He was hoping it was more so intimidating. But hey, maybe that beauty catches them off guard, and he uses that to his advantage to defeat them. At least the top 3 fighters there. With Chichi watching on the entire time. It's been a while since she got to see Kakarot fight close up. She's always just heard stories or whatever, or had to watch some other tournament. It's nice to actually watch it from the same level as him, and join alongside him. As you could probably guess, Ten actually stays in here and performs way better than he did normally, thanks to King Kai's training. He's much stronger and it's definitely the strongest human here. One of the weirder fights here is going to be Piccon and Ten fighting Dispo. Oh, and by the way, I know Picon's not canon, but neither is Super Saiyan 4. And that's in this What If, so why not have fun and bring in Piccon too? He is a pretty strong character after all. If you look back at how he fought against Goku, he is very talented, and I feel with those few extra years of training here, Of course, he's going to be way stronger than he was when we saw him in the anime, and due to Dispo's speed, it will be kinda tough, but I feel like Ten and Pikkon can edge him out in terms of power. Together, the two of them are able to take down the Speedster from Universe 11, securing a solid victory. And as for Goten, he sticks with Gohan a lot, with both of them joining Ten or Piccolo quite often. There's nothing really crazy about the first few parts of the tournament. At some point I feel Raditz would have had his fun with Universe 6, and he defeats those 3 Saiyans, although he ends it on good terms. The twins join each other again, and the two agree that they're both concerned about Jiren. They don't really know how they're going to defeat him, but for now they can just avoid him. They start discussing plans as they go off fighting other people. One of the good things they could do is actually face the other Pride Troopers. Gohan actually goes up against Toppo, showing off Super Saiyan 4 Limit Breaker. Raditz chuckles a bit as Gohan steals his ability. He knew the form was cool, but he didn't expect an imposter. Jokes aside, it's nice to see Gohan using it. And Toppo's impressed too. He senses the God Key within it. And the two have a pretty enjoyable fight, although Gohan definitely comes out on top. No pun intended. The fight would definitely be on good terms as well. I mean, both of them are warriors of justice in one way or another. So they can bond through that. And it gives a nice show for Goten. Although he isn't as strong as someone like Toppo is, he can provide moral support for Gohan. Eventually the numbers begin dwindling, and at some point, Jiren's going to be basically unavoidable. He's going to be one of the last few fighters left. So Universe 7 actually has to face him now. A lot of time has progressed in the tournament, and obviously there's been no Ultra Instinct yet, and I don't think there actually will be. Neither of the twins were really focused on those techniques here. They're both very power focused. So it's not going to be like how Goku got it. They might not need it though. They have some ideas about how to defeat Jiren. As long as they all work together, they may be able to come out victorious here. They outnumber him, but they don't overpower him. But strategy will definitely be very helpful. By this point, they've lost a few fighters, possibly Krillin, Yamcha, Chichi, and maybe even Goten. I feel those four would have the toughest time staying in. But it's still a 6v1. Kakarot and Raditz are the main attackers as everyone else supports them. The twins are aiming to wear Jiren out and get him annoyed so he starts fighting sloppy. They notice that he's beginning to power up and realize that they should probably end this quickly before he could show off all of his power. Him being suppressed actually gives them an advantage. They can use that as part of their plan, but once he's fully powered up, they might not have a shot. So Kakarot and Raditz push him to the edge, literally bringing him to the edge of the ring. Of course he fends them off, but they don't aim to knock him off this way. No, they have a much better idea. Suddenly, Kakarot makes a bunch of Kienzans, flinging them at Jiren. Easily he dodges all of them, as Kakarot continues to spam them, while Jiren fends off Raditz with one hand. Jiren begins to power up more, as the two brothers get together and blind Jiren. They're copying Krillin's whole flow. And even though Jiren's blind, he still sends them and is able to fight them. But the good thing is he didn't notice the Kienzans. You see, Kakarot wasn't aiming to hit Jiren with them. He had a much better idea. As Jiren is blinded and he tries to fend off the two fighters, the ground behind him is sliced up, and everyone else notices it too. So they try to help by doing the same. Gohan then jumps in, trying to fight alongside Kakarot and Raditz. Pikkon jumps in too, and they didn't really expect this. They have no idea how Pikkon fights since they've never fought with him before, but this is actually perfect. Their lack of synergy actually helps. Raditz and Kakarot have fought together their whole lives. I mean, they're twins after all. Of course they're going to have perfect synergy when fighting. But they've known Pikkon for like a few hours by this point, so they're not too sure how to fight with him. But that also means Jiren can't predict how he's going to fight either. Raditz, Kakarot, and Gohan fight along Pikkon, and it's kind of random. Ten's not too surprised either because Pikkon told him this. He just wants to distract Jiren long enough for the ring to actually give out, even though he knows that in terms of power he's no real match. Jiren's vision slowly comes back as Kakarot and Raditz then launch past him, with Gohan flipping over Jiren, and together the three attack him with a blast. And Jiren easily reflects it with one hand, although the rest of the fighters join in with their own attacks, creating a massive beam struggle between the remaining fighters of Universe 7 and Jiren. And while he defends the blast, he doesn't notice that the ring is giving out below him. Krillin jumps away and tries to slice up the ground himself, causing it to give out more. At one point, Jiren slips off, noticing when it's too late. He tries to jump back in, but when he does, he lands on another rock that falls, as more rocks fall in front of him. Much of the ring in front of him is being destroyed, as he's also being attacked by a combined beam attack. He has no way to jump up either, there's no footing below him. In an act of desperation, Jiren powers up completely, trying to launch a blast in the void to propel himself upwards, leaving him completely open to the attack from Universe 7. He takes the beam head on as he jumps back up, but before he makes it back into the ring, he looks up and sees Raditz and Kakarot have jumped up above him, and the two descend down upon him with a powerful kick. They go full speed ahead as they take Jiren out with them, and due to the combined effort of Universe 7, Jiren is defeated, causing them to be the victors. Once again, the two twins were able to find a way to use teamwork to their advantage. Obviously all their friends were a big help too. In terms of the MVP, for simplicity, let's say it's Gohan, but regardless of who wins, the wish will be the same. Universe 7 is full of good people. Well, at least the people that are actually here. And because of that, we get a nice wish. And I could have Beerus and Whis revive Pikkon as a gift, but I feel like Pikkon would rather just stay dead. At least in the sense of Dragon Ball, they make it seem like death is cool there. You never have to sleep and you can just keep training forever. Plus, Beerus and Whis don't really have a reason to revive him. Of course, he can still see Ten and his new allies whenever he wants. And that wraps up this arc. Following this arc though, we have the Moro arc. The Galactic Patrol tries to find Boo on Earth, and of course there's no Boo there, but luckily there's a bunch of strong fighters that can help them. The Galactic Patrol brings Kakarot, Raditz, Gohan, and Ten Shinhan to Namek with them, and they're caught up to speed about who Moro is and what he's doing. On the ride there, they actually have a pretty good plan. Hopefully it'll actually work though. Moro senses everyone coming to Namek, and when he's actually there, he encounters two of them, Kakarot and Raditz. Ten and Gohan have split up. Raditz and Kakarot are going to act as bait, while those two are actually going to try and fight Moro another way. The twins do put up a good fight, but clearly they can't win once Moro breaks out his magic. Although Gohan and Ten's plan is a pretty good one, Kakarot and Raditz are really playing the long game here, and they distracted Moro long enough. The whole point of the distraction was for Ten and Gohan to actually gather the Dragon Balls. There wasn't really much opposition. I mean, there was only one guy working with Moro at this point, while they have a whole planet of Namekians working with them. They're going to use the Dragon Balls to their advantage. As Kakarot and Raditz continue to fight Moro, mid-fight, they see Porunga summoned. Moro is immediately panicked as he tries to rush over, preparing to kill Porunga as well. As he launches over there, he suddenly feels weaker. The first wish is made, and that was to remove all of Moro's magic. Kakarot and Raditz chase down Moro, and suddenly he disappears. They're confused, but then they realize that the second wish must have been made. That was to actually seal him, using magic from Porunga to permanently lock him away. Now safely with the Galactic Patrol again. As for the third wish, they fix all the damage he's caused so far. And once again here, we see how teamwork really helps with this scenario. They essentially just avoided the entire Moro arc. Instead of it just being Kakarot and Raditz there, having two extra teammates really did help. The same magic that Moro uses for power, it was used to seal him. Kinda ironic in a way. They helped the Galactic Patrol, save Namek, and save the universe unknowingly. All in all, I'd say it's a pretty good ending. Kakarot and Raditz have come a pretty long way. Look how they started. Small-time martial artists living with Grandpa Gohan. And look at them now, saving the entire universe, multiple times over. They fought against and beside literal gods, and they kinda are literal gods as well. They both have happy families, and a bunch of great friends. Not only have they developed as fighters, but as people. They remember those two other Saiyans they fought before, Vegeta and Nappa. If only they ended up the same way. They wonder what those two are up to in Otherworld, but that's obviously another story for another time. This is Raditz and Kakarot's story. And with that, we'll end off here for now. So, what did you guys think about this scenario, and what did you think about this part? If it ever continues, what do you think would happen next? Leave any thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. I'll be sure to check them out to see what you guys think. As always, if you like the video or this series, be sure to drop a like. It'll let me know that you guys like scenarios like this one. If you haven't already, why not subscribe, as well as hitting the bell icon and get notified about any future videos I upload on my channel, including more scenarios like this one. Anyways, thank you all for watching, thank you for supporting this scenario, and I'll see you all in whatever video is next.